All right, so welcome you all again, and as you have done already, a few sections of economic survey, but today when we'll start with external sector and sustainable development and climate change. These two of the very important findings, as you know, not only from the Indian economy perspective, but even from the examination point of view. Now, before I get into the external sector and for further details, in fact, I would like to say that I'm starting on a very good note today to share this, that there's a good news I would like to start with, that India has already achieved that mammoth task of, which was a very ambitious task of India, that we are going to achieve $300 billion export. We have achieved that, and now we are moving towards $400 billion. So you can say that the news starts on a good thing. In fact, one of the underreported things I would like to say is the defense export when INS Sindhuvir has been given. So there is a lot of things you are going to like about the external sector and its progress, that how economic survey is trying to tell us that what has happened in the external sector, where we stand, and what is the future perspective. But before I get into the external sector per se, I would like to say 2-3 things, which is just a general reminder to you. You have already read about it, you have heard of it, and I'm sure my informed listener are knowing about it, but then even to start the conversation, that might be solicited. First thing first, that why economic survey? What is this flagship document of the government of India? You have been informed about it in detail, but if I could tell you in very brief, that for any policy making, as you know, data is imperative. And how the data comes? Obviously, there should be some official source. And that is the reason why right from the beginning of 1950s, we got this document. You have seen already, that what is the history of this document, how it has moved from that 38 pages to, almost 1,000 pages covering, and now reduced again subsequently to more than 400 pages. That is the quick history. I'm sure you're aware of it, but I wanted to bring it to your notice again, to your memories again. Now, this document, if you see, is primarily for what? A, to know that where we stand, because for any policy making, this is very important to know where we stand. And how you can know where you stand? With the data. That's why I would like to start from here. When it comes to that, what exactly this flagship program's approach is, as I just told you, that for policy making, you should be knowing the data exactly, and data should be authentic. So that is the reason why Ministry of Finance, Department of Economic Affairs, the people sitting there with their research team, along with obviously inputs coming from Niti Aayog and several other sources, they make that data. Data is primarily having two objectives. That's why I prefer to call it the data approach. The data approach, where we want to see where we stand. When we say where we stand, we have to compare it from the previous years. Obviously, that where we were in the previous years, whether we have gone up, whether we have gone down. So that is needed, right? And that is done often on year-on-year approach, what has been the case of the entire fiscal year, last year, where we stand today. But here I would like to bring to your notice, again, I'm sure you are aware of it, but then even, and that is the data which we will see in the economic survey largely, is something which covers April to December. The data is April to December, that means the data is of 9 months. And why so? Obviously, because after that they have to prepare this, that data is collected, processed. There are several other things, in the printing and all. That's the reason why we mostly cover the data up to December. So be careful. Next time when you're reading it or revising the things, this must be very clear in your mind, that the data is from April to December, in some cases even November, if the data is coming from RBI, because again, there is a delay of let's say 1 month. So April to December of 2021 will be compared with April to December of 2020. So this is how we do the comparison. So this tells us in the contrast to last year where we are. So where we were in the last year, where we are today, and that kind of comparison will tell us whether we are going up, we are going down, and so on. So one thing. This time, in this economic survey, as we all are knowing that we have gone through the predicaments of this COVID lockdowns, just to see where we stand before pandemic time. We had seen in the entire survey, most of the time you have also noticed it in the earlier chapters, that in the entire survey there is a comparison of the April to December of last year, then April to December of 2019-20, when before the pandemic. That's why you might have heard this term every now and then. We are in the pre-pandemic level, we are on the verge of the pre-pandemic level, or we are above to it, just to make sure that whether we have recovered or not. So that's how, in the data part, you should be very careful that the data is of 9 months, April to December, and the same period of the last year, and this time even to last year is frequently being used, just to know where we stand scientifically. It's not because government is saying, it's not because someone feels like, it should be based upon some imperative facts. That's the reason why surveys talks about data. Second thing, the survey also focuses upon, that's why I had told you that look, the survey also focuses upon one thing, because when it comes to data is something which is little sluggish. Those who are in the researchers, those who have ever done any research, even a smaller one, they know that data takes time to process. That's why this year's survey has used one thing very good. I'm sure you have heard of it, but I'm just referring to all that quickly so that we can set the mood and can apply all that in external sector also. You know that sometime what we are calling it now high frequency indicators, right? So that is something which is a welcoming move in this year's survey. So this year's survey is having even high frequency indicators to see. Like if you see the data of the entire GDP, or if you see the data of any other thing, that takes time in the processing. However, high frequency indicators, they could be very useful to see that what is real time scenario there. And in the digital world, now it's easy. So that's why you have been already informed in detail that how these high frequency indicators work. Some of it we will see even in sustainable development, climate change and infrastructure, etc. One of my personal favorite, which I would like to bring you special notice to, and I think again it's underreported, is the 11th chapter which has been added into this year's economic survey, which is pure comparison of the satellite imagery. You might have heard that famous saying that a photograph speaks 1,000 times louder than words. This is what might have been the philosophy behind. So even this is a new approach of the data, which I think is going to be a routine thing, that in years to come they will be using these satellite images, like just to show that how much of electrification has happened in India. We got this time luminosity report, or in the night, that how much of India is luminous in the night in comparison to 2005 where we stand. Similarly, in comparison to 2005 where we are in the smart cities and set of things like bank branches and whatnot to show the financial inclusion. So this is something which is a new approach, where we tried to compare the images from the past to see that how much of real-time development has happened. This is, I think, is being done to make sure that when we are talking about financial inclusion, when we are talking about electrification, it doesn't look like that, okay, fine, it is something just into the files. It is apparently there, if you see from the satellite images. That's one thing which is a new entry, and I think it's going to be routine practice from here onwards. Now, they also provide, as you know, the macro financial stability factors, that whatsoever are the macroeconomic stability indicators in India, like financial, fiscal, external, inflation, and sector analysis. That's why we have divided in that way, and each of thing has been already discussed. I will take care of now external sector, that where the external sector we stand, and what are the dimensions. But is really economic survey is all about the data, which is the first and the general impression? No, it's not all about the data. For sure, it's not all about the data. But before that, I would like to share one thing. It is something which you might have already seen. I had mentioned here, just for a reference, that GDP forecasting is customary of economic survey. That's why this time they had been very careful. You have already discussed about it, that what is GDP forecasting of the, but that is something which is routine since beginning and almost a tradition, that whenever we talk about economic survey, they provide a ritual of GDP forecasting based on certain assumptions. So these are what the data they provide. So what important data we get? We get to know from last year where we stand for the 9 months. Then we also come to know that, okay, fine, what is the real time testing and all. That is something which is useful in terms of analysis. That's why data is given, so that we can say authentically that this is what is the story out there. Second thing, if you see, as I said, this is more important. Most of the time when you look at the economic survey, I have to admit this honestly, that the general impression students get that it's all about the data, and they start getting into rat race of the data, mugging all the data. It's not practically possible that you can mug up all the data. You should be only knowing the key data, like I started today, is a key data. It's something which we all are showcasing everywhere. So it's only key data is important. What is important is the analysis approach of the economic survey, where they analyze the things. Like if you know, this time you had been already told that we got that famous what is called bare ball strategy. I'm sure you are knowing now it very well, that what is bare ball strategy, when two antagonistic, or you can say two opposite things are taken into the consideration, largely speaking. So what we do, like if you see, I had summed it up very briefly for you. If you see the entire survey, there are two opposite things are visible. One is when we are going for traditional ways like Atmanirbhar Bharat, making sure that we are having what is called PLIs and deposit insurances and other kind of forex accumulation and all, the traditional thinking of economics. And on the same time, we had focused upon flexibility, innovation. And this is what I have directly borrowed from the presentation of the Principal Economic Advisor Sanjeev Sanyal himself has presented this while briefing to the media, that what exactly the analysis we are focusing upon. So it's very much visible. So why I'm telling you this? If a question is asked in mains, even while giving the answer or approaches, try to inculcate this in your answers. Say something which is very conventional. Say if it is asked what should be done for climate change, something very conventional, like carbon emissions should be reduced, Glasgow and guidelines and all that. But talk about something innovative also. Innovation in the sense how to finance the climate change, from where the things, and that is visible in the discussion. As you have seen the chapter wise, in every chapter this paradoxical things are coexisting. One hand, very classical, whatever the approach is, that has been followed, and on the other hand, they have also tried to understand that what could be the innovation in that. So even in external sector, if you see that they had talked about that what needs to be done, there's a complete whole range of schemes which has been provided to make sure that how we can make our export even more robust. So this is how, when we talk about answering the mains, almost every year you will see that 2-3 questions in the mains paper, particularly in economics, the paper 3 of GS, or even sometime in essay. This approach should be useful for you now. So whenever you're talking about, say something which is conventional, which is otherwise performing well, and then talk about something which is innovative, which you have learned from any other source, from internationally or otherwise. This is something which is a fine blend this time economic survey has strongly solicited. I'm well aware of it, that you are knowing it, that whatever economic survey says is not binding to the government. But government try to respect that, because whatever they are saying is something based upon scientific conclusion, not just based upon some assumptions. So this way, when it comes to approach, one thing which is which should be reflected in your answer writing, that the new approach of India for reforms is looking into the innovation on one hand, flexibility and innovation. We are not shy of deregulating various players, and at the same time we are also going conventional to make sure that welfare is not being taken on the back seat. And then second thing, which is special focus, and I believe I will be 0% surprised if you got something like this directly in your examination. What is process reform? A lot of emphasis has been made by the economic survey when they are talking about the India's situation in the last fiscal year. They had very categorically mentioned at several places that process reform is the solution now. You have heard of the liberalization and 1990s reform. Now what is this process reform? Process reform, when we say, it simply means that we are not going for any paradigm shift in our policies. We are continuing with the same approach. Maybe the same approach of what the government started in the 2014, or government started even earlier to that in 2008. Like if you see that when it comes to non-renewable energy, in fact I'm very happy to share this, that I had been given that chapter where I can proudly say that my country has achieved 40% of non-renewable sources energy, which was supposed to be achieved by 2030. We are quite ahead of time. So clearly indicates that we are focusing on the process reform. So what is the process reform? In the process reform, we don't change our policy outlook. We remain the same. Policy outlook is that to help the people. But within that, we see how we can improve the process. Let me give you a quick example to my informed readers that what exactly it is. Say for example, the survey itself says, very important, that's why I had mentioned it here in very brief, the procurement. When government offices procure, you might have heard of it, that government require a lot of things, stationery, computers and this and that. So when government procure, what they do? They go for tender, and somebody purchases that tender, and often it was said, government was criticized on that at what cost they had purchased, market price is something way lesser than that. So maybe a computer which they has purchased in 60,000 rupees, in the market was just in 25-30,000 rupees. That's how government has been criticized. Now what they have done, they made it completely digital. And it's World Bank report that India's digital procurement is offering the competitive price equal to the price which is available even the Amazon for the retail customers. So at what cost we are buying the computer, at that cost now government is, this is what is called process reform. So what government has government changed its approach of procurement? No. Policy remained the same, that we will be procuring by the bidding. Where we got improved? In the process. So a lot of things are going on. So while looking into it, in fact, if you see this year's mains question paper, at many places you will see that they wanted to know, let's say there was a question on infrastructure. If you see micro irrigation, there was a question on micro irrigation. Everywhere they wanted to see whether you're understanding the process reform or not. So before I get into what exactly external sector is, I want my listeners to be very careful of two things. That has we changed our policy? As some people say that we had moved from one set of political thought to another set of political thought, that is exaggeration. Has we changed that? No. What we have changed is that we are no more shy of flexibility and innovation, and the COVID has compelled us to some extent, and at the same time a lot of process reform has been recommended, used in the previous government, in the previous years, and even now we are taking it as a routine approach here and there. So while writing your answers, whenever you're writing, look into whether your answers are talking about the process reform or you're talking something very radical. So radical thing is not accepted. Let's say if you are saying anything like this year, maybe you may get question on climate change. A lot of things are going on in the climate change, you might be knowing already. You may get question already about infrastructure, because capital expenditure, I'm sure you are clear of it now, that capital expenditure has increased manyfold in this year's budget. So needless to say that government is going to focus on infrastructure. So keeping all these things in mind, where is the focus? Focus is the process reforms. Focus is in this what is called getting two things together. Some part of it will be very conventional, and some part of it where we will be very innovative. So that's how we got the approach which is undercurrent in the economic survey. So before I wanted to get into the chapter, this is what I wanted to bring to your notice again, though I'm sure that you have already heard of all these things clearly. But then even, so be careful. From data part, what is your take home? When you talk about the data, from the data part, your take home is only the key data. Please do not try to mug up each and every final detail. In fact, that's why I had come with this, these things, so that I can pinpoint which data you should be taking into consideration and why. A. And second, you should be developing this approach while thinking of, in fact, if you read any article, you will see that these things are visible. All the chapters, when you will revise, you will see that this is the undercurrent. Undercurrent is that we appreciate innovation and flexibility, and at the same time, we keep our legs grounded. You know that famous saying, legs grounded firmly, but looking high in the sky, that kind of thing. But at the same time, the process reform, that within the process where the loopholes are and how we can plug in. So this is the undercurrent. Now, having said so, now I can step into what is called the external sector and what economic survey talks about it. Now, if I move further, as most of you are aware of it, but then even if there is anyone who is not that much aware, I would like to bring to their notice that for any country, when we talk about external sector, how that external sector is viewed. Look, as I told you in the beginning of the class, that economic survey is the flagship document to tell where we stand in various sectors. So how you come to know about any countries, that whether the country is good in external sector or not. External sector in a very simple term means how a country is dealing with the rest of the world in terms of export, in terms of import. And since Bretton Woods conference, we got a standard way of calculating it, and that is famously called as balance of payment. So for a non-economic listener, balance of payment simply the balance sheet of the government with the rest of the world, that where the government is, and all that balance of payment, how it should be maintained, how it should be written, what should be the details. That guideline is given to every country from IMF. So IMF, International Monetary Fund, which is one of the very important financial institutions worldwide, they tell us that how we should be maintaining any external balance. So when we talk about external sector of any country, so if you India, Pakistan, Russia, whatever, any country when you're talking about, you will look into their balance of payment to see and gauge how they are doing in the external sector. So in India, we also follow the IMF guideline. The latest guideline is of 2008, that is called Balance of Payment Manual 2008, which has been prepared by IMF. We are also using it. Now this guideline, latest guideline, IMF 2008 manual, gives us certain heads. India also manages it, and in India this entire is managed by RBI. RBI is one who manages this balance of payment, and all that calculation is done in dollar. So be careful. Did you notice I started with $3,000 billion? Why? Because the moment I say external sector, I have to talk about the dollar. So it is, all the calculations are done in dollar, and for the sake of general understanding, the external sector is largely subdivided into two accounts. One is what you call current account. Current account. In the current account, we see that how the things are moving here and there. That is called, that's why I mentioned it, the balance of payment. As you know, IMF Manual 2008. So it has a current account. A current account is about the things and all. So if you see that balance of payment of any country has a current account and a capital account. In the current account, we talk about that what is a balance of trade in terms of merchandise, that how much of things are coming and going, whether we are exporting more, that means we are selling more, or whether we are importing more. So if we are exporting more, that's definitely a good situation for any country. If we are importing more, that means it is not that good a situation. When it comes to capital, in the current account, one is what is called balance of trade, as you know. Second is what is called balance of invisible. In the balance of invisible, we'll look into what is services, what about income and other transfers. So if I could brief it here, balance of payment is in terms of current. In the current, we have one thing called balance of trade, and other can be called as balance of invisible. In that we have what is called services, the way we are doing exporting, importing services. I think if I give it a fresh page, that will be more useful for you. So before I get into what exactly where we stand, this general understanding will be useful. So balance of payment, that is actually the hallmark that how a country is doing in external sector, is divided into two, as I just said, current account, and another can be called as capital account. Current account is all about the trade, capital account is all about how much of money movement is there. When we talk about current account, it is divided into two. One what you can call as balance of trade, that how much of things are importing, exporting, and second what you can call as balance of invisible, in that we have services, various types of services when we are exporting, importing. You have already heard of mode 1, mode 2, mode 3, mode 4. So various kind of services we are exporting or importing. Second is what you can call as various transfers. Like let's say if there is an American resident who has invested in India, obviously will be getting some dividend on the investment, that is what is called transfer. Or maybe he has he has given some loan to by buying some bonds and all, well, will be getting profit on it. So whatever profit and transfers are kept here. And third is what you can say when we say other kind of remittances. So what kind of remittances are coming? So when we talk about current account, this is how we have what is called balance of trade, one thing, balance of invisible, in that services, other kind of profits and dividends, and then remittances or transfers. And then when it comes to capital account, it is largely divided into what you can say investment, and investment is viewed in terms of FDI and FPI. FDI is when they are coming and participating in the business. FPI is when they have given money. Let's say there's one of my American friend who has given me money in various form and say go and do business, FPI. Elon Musk is trying to come to India and to do business here, FDI. That's how we got FDI, FPI. Then we have various types of loans, and loans can be taken by government from World Bank and other sources, and the loans also can be taken by companies, what you call external commercial borrowing, ECBs. And the third is what you can call as banking capital, that much, how much of money banks are having. Banking capital. Now look, this information, this basic information is needed to get the data or to enjoy the data. So in very brief, especially I'm focusing on those who are listening to these things for the first time, what is external sector balance of payment. If you see balance of payment, it is viewed into two heads, current account and the capital account. If you see India's situation, by and large, services we are doing good, we are exporting services. Now you must be wondering how the services can be exported. Look, softwares we are selling there, and so and so. So services are exporting, we are doing good there. Transfer wise, we are negative because so much of money is coming to India. So not a bad deal, because if money is coming, that's overall a good idea. Remittances, since 2008, India ranks first continuously in the remittances. This is where the concern is. I would like to bring you a special notice here. Balance of trade is where we are importing more, exporting less. That means by and large in balance of trade we are in negative. And why it is so? Why it is so? Look, the reasons are to some extent structural, because we have to import petroleum products, crude oil and all. We are dependent. That's why every time you have heard that even RBI talks about it, everyone, that if the crude prices are going up, our economy has to be, they are going to pay the cost of it. So crude is something where we are dependent upon. Whether like or dislike, this is the reason why our import is more. Then we have more import of gold and several other things. So you can say that there are some challenges also why we are having what is called balance of trade negative. However, in the COVID time, if you see that when lockdowns happened and no economic activity is taking place, our demand of oil has gone down. Demand of oil has gone down, and that was a time where we have seen balance of trade is something getting on the positive side. But is this kind of positive is good? No. This means where the economic activities are not taking place and we are becoming good, that's not a good idea. We must try to have renewable energy, other kind of things, or even more export, so that our balance of trade is getting into what is called good book. So balance of trade of India is generally negative. If you see last 20 years, the trend is once in a while it has gone into the positive territory, otherwise it is negative. And it is understandable because we are dependent upon the fossil fuel largely. This we are overall good. By and large, if you see the total current account is which is in negative, by and large. This is the general trend of the last few years, you can say. If I see the decade, this is the general trend. Capital account, we are doing good, no doubt about it. That means a lot of FDI and FPI is coming. FDI is coming in India, in a chunk, no doubt. FPI is going up and down. Look, if you, I'll talk about it, something which I think is very important now from prelims point of view. One term which you might have heard in the newspaper here and there these is called taper tantrum. Economic survey has talked about it. What is FPI? When people are giving the money. So it's something which is volatile because people are giving the money, investing in the India. If they find somewhere else better investment, they may go there. So FPI is something which we can see that is going up and down, fluctuating. FDI is increasing, and that's why FDI is something which is, increase in FDI is a good idea. When it comes to loans, obviously the external commercial borrowing means companies of India taking loan from the outside has also increased, government's loan has also increased. So overall, if you see, the scenario is that capital account is positive, current account is negative. This is the general trend to understand that what exactly external sector. So if you are aware of all these things, then you can enjoy that what exactly the chapter is saying and what are the findings. Let's go into that now. So I had briefed it here that what is balance of payment, and the heads of it, current account, in that balance of trade and balance of invisible, capital account, investment, debt and banking capital. RBI maintains the record and that is in dollar, and general behavior is towards current account deficit. This has been the general behavior of last few years, that we are into the current account deficit due to structural resource constraints. So by now it should be clear to you that when we talk about external sector of any country, we follow the same guideline which has been said by IMF by looking to the balance of payment into two heads clearly. Current account where we stand, capital account where we stand. In the current account where we stand in trade, where we stand in services, where we stand in transfers and remittances, and where we stand in terms of investment in capital account, in borrowing in capital account, in what is called banking capital in capital account. Now you tell me, even if economic survey is talking about, don't you think they will be following the same route? Not a surprise. In this chapter, if you see quickly what they had talked about, that's why I had given you brief. The chapter 3 on external sector, what it talks about. First, what is the general behavior of the world economy? It has also said what is the merchandise export and import of India, where we stand. It has also said where we stand in services, trade in services. What is overall current account situation, where we are now in current account. Capital account and various head, how it is there, what is movement in the exchange rate, and net international investment position and external debt. Did you notice? Even these are the key headings of the chapter. If you see the original economic survey given by the the government, or even the briefing offered by the institution, this is the organization of the chapter. So as if you understand now that chart, what we'll first talk about, what is the general behavior of the global economy. Then we'll talk about where we stand in terms of trade, in terms of invisible, in terms of FDI, FPI, in terms of what is called borrowing, and overall what is the position. That's what the chapter actually briefs about. Now, moving further, if you see what are the key highlights of the global economy. Now, on the left side, I try to tell you what is our main discussion. Now, these are the factual things, so I'll go a little faster on it. My focus was first you should be knowing that head clearly. Now, what is take home for you from this particular topic which the chapter is talking about, global economic environment? Across the globe, if you see, economies has shown what is called what's called different kind of behavior, sometime as you call it weak, some people call it tilted W. In fact, I would like to quote on a lighter note, the principal economic advisor Sanjeev Sanyal, when he was talking about all that, he himself admitted that even we were scratching head in the Department of Economic Affairs that which name now we should use. We have used, and now what we should call it. W has been already used, so they prefer to call it tilted W. That's why this year's economic survey has not used any of the alphabet, because they are fed up with this alphabet thing, V, K and all that kind of thing. This year's economic survey nowhere uses that. Did you notice? Last year it was the key idea that we are in the V shape, and the question was asked on that. The very cover page has talked about it, last year's economic survey. This year they had refrained from it. I hope now you understand the logic, because that is becoming irrelevant as we are having a lot of uncertainties going. Delta, then Omicron, and then other set of challenges from Ukraine crisis, and so on and so forth. So keeping this in mind, as the uncertainties are looming around, the global economic behavior has been, if you see the global economic trade, the behavior has been that overall we have shown some recovery, then we have gone down, then again recovery. But if you see the entire financial year, you can say it was little downwards. It was little downwards because of these uncertainties and set of challenges. In fact, one more reason, which I'm sure have heard of it already, I would like to bring your notice to, that most of the products are network products. You understand network products. Network product is anything which gets component from various places. Like let's say this pencil. If this rubber is coming from Malaysia, if the plastic is coming from Russia or China, if the tip is coming from Spain and then it is assembled in China, the software is designed in America, this we will call as network product. And in that case, any lockdown in any country will what is called break the entire chain, supply chain. So supply chain disruptions has been very common. There has been various other challenges. So keeping all these things in mind, in fact, look, I often say iPhone itself is an example. Do you know, just for information, that an iPhone, when an iPhone reaches to you, 43 countries are involved to make that product. Yes, 43 countries, clearly indicating the dependence on the international scenario. All these things indicate our vulnerability. So if you see, the behavior has been, the global outlook has been, economies had shown corrections by and large, but not that good. Overall situation was not that good. We can say that we had improved, but not up to the mark. So there were references given. In fact, if you see the original document given by the government, there was a graph indicating that how we had gone up and then it's slightly down. So that is what I wanted to bring to notice, that what is the key highlight. The key highlight has been that by and large economy, global economy has not that good performed. But the question remains, is it the case with across the commodities, all the things? No. This behavior has been different. Like if you see, in the last I had mentioned it, when it comes to manufacturing good, some sectors have shown very good behavior, like iron, steel, electronic components, pharmaceuticals, while some of them had shown what is called a kind of decline, like as you say, the semiconductor challenges, stagnations and so and so. So if, the world economy, the export and import across the global level, if you see the global economic environment has been a little better than the COVID time, the first years of COVID, but Delta variant and then Omicron has put again some halt on it. By and large, some of the sectors like iron, steel, pharma has done wonderful. While on the other hand, if you see that those which are related to semiconductors and some other sectors, tourism is something which you can say had suffered. Now for all that, what data has been used? Now this is important from examination point of view. In fact, if you are taking a note of it, do take a note of it. How they have said all that. What the source economic survey has followed. The source they had followed is WTO's Goods Trade Barometer Index. Now this is what UPSC does. Like remember last year when the gold tranche came into the external sector, they've asked question on gold tranche. This time when FDI explanation was given, they asked in the prelims what do you understand by FDI and so and so. So it is rare. I think you should bring it to your notice now. There is one Goods Trade Barometer Index which is given by WTO. This index says if you get 100 marks, this is the baseline. I'm saying in the layman's term, if it gives you 100 marks, that means things are okay, good. If you're going above 100, that means you're doing wonderful. So the baseline passing mark is 100. If you're doing 100, it shows that how much of movement of the goods, logistics and all that has happened. If WTO's Goods Trade Barometer Index shows 100 marks, that means it's baseline, passing mark. If you see the report card says we got 99.5, we missed the bus. Slightly though, but 99.5 clearly indicates that situation is not that good. So you can say by and large, so what should be, now here I would like to request to my listeners that this is where you should be knowing the data and this is where you should be skipping the data. Now, it will be a little difficult to remember this data. There is no need of it. You should be knowing that goods trade barometer index is produced by WTO. That could be one line. What is the baseline is 100. That means the situation is good. More you go above 100, that means situation is good. Going below 100 clearly says that global economy is yet not recovering the way it should recover by now. And the reasons are many, as I told you, that uncertainty is looming because of the variant and the predicaments, and then at the same time the international conflicts, and even some of the organizations like WTO, etc. If you see, they were not given that power which was required. This is one of the thing has been highlighted by United Nations again, that WTO, WHO kind of organization needs even more power in this kind of situation. But whatever, you can say that this was the general behavior. So having said that the general behavior is not that good, we have done wonderful. We have done wonderful, no doubt about it. How? Here is the fact. So I hope now you are knowing what is, again, the only thing I had asked you to remember is that there is one index that is called Goods Trade Barometer Index produced by WTO. Don't get confused, it's WTO, not IMF. It's WTO, and it tells us that what is the movement of the goods, and the baseline is 100. We are beneath that. Clearly indicates that global environment. Rest was more just for understanding. I hope now you've understood that how the global economy was not that good, not that bad. Not across all sectors bad, some sectors good, some sector bad. That was the trend of the global economy. Now moving ahead, if you see that merchandise export, what was there in the merchandise export? Now you can understand it when I say during 2021-22 April December. Now in the beginning I told you why April December is the logic. April December of 2021 and then the last year. That's how we do the comparison. And even before that to see whether we are at pre-COVID time or not. So if you see, when it comes to export, merchandise export recorded growth of 49.7% to US dollar 301.4 billion. That's why I told you I started on a very good note. I started with that positive news that how India has already achieved that target. So this is a good thing for India. This was our ambitious target. We had made this target that next year we will try to have what is called $400 billion export. And in the 9 months, we have already achieved 301 billion, clearly indicates that we are quite good on the trajectory. Obviously, this has happened because of set of factors, primarily in the process reforms. A lot of process reforms has happened. And look, that's what is, so it clearly indicates that now we are going back to the pre-pandemic level. And why this is happening? Because of, you can say that, people have what is called a lot of fiscal stimulus. If you see, last year has been the year of a lot of support system. In fact, one thing which I would like to talk about now this is for general understanding. I hope now you're getting the neck that how you should be reading these chapters. First is get the general understanding that what is the general behavior of the global economy. Then if any specific data which you should bring to your notice so that you can develop your understanding on the subject. Now, when it comes to export, that means balance of payment, current account, balance of trade. When it comes to export, we have done wonderful. This is a good, in fact, this is a punchline which you can use in your answers in your mains, that we have already achieved more than 300 billion target. Now, it has happened because government has given a lot of support to the export sector last year. If you see, a lot of emergency credit line has been given to MSME sector. Logistic reforms has happened. We got even we were working on our port reforms, railway. A lot of things has happened, which has definitely promoted the export. India's export has been promoted because of all that. So one of the reason is this, that we can see that we have witnessed the growth. How much of the growth is? If you see 49.7%, that's not important for you. You should be knowing that 300 billion task has been achieved already. And if you see, it is because of the push of the government, various reforms, and obviously as people got more money, more flow in the system, we have seen that export got a good response. Then nevertheless, the economic survey has also said this also is because of that internationally prices were also increasing. If prices are increasing, your export will look bigger. So that's another reason. But if you see, by and large, it is primarily because of a lot of efforts being taken to promote export, one thing. Second thing is that we had brought what is called a lot of money in the system with the help of RBI. Was very active in the entire COVID period, very active, not leaving any stone unturned to make sure that the money is available in the system. So keeping this in mind, you can say overall our export has done well. Now, it is something which is not only in terms of POL exports. Generally, when we talk about export, for sake of convenience, we divide into two, POL and non-POL. POL is what is called petroleum, oil and lubricants. Petroleum, oil and lubricants, that is something which is petroleum product and all. And non-POLs could be the wide range of other things, because if you see, of the total export, 15% belongs to petroleum, oil and lubricant. Now, some of you might be concerned. Had it been one-to-one in front, you could have asked this question to me. That, sir, you just said that we are dependent upon the petroleum for the import. Yes, this is very interesting thing, that India imports crude oil and then we also export the petroleum products a lot. We also export the petroleum product in terms of petroleum, oil and lubricants. So that's something, because we have very good refineries here, so we export it also. If you see, of the entire export chunk, almost 15%, sometimes little less or more, but this is the average. 15% of the total export is something which is coming from the petroleum products. So that's why, for the sake of convenience, we call it POL export and non-POL export. I hope the terms are now not much bothering you. You understood why it is called POL and non-POL, because its chunk is big. So non-POL export has also gone well. If you see that by and large, so what is the important from this point, that our export has increased. Our export has increased and we have achieved that 300 billion target. That's one thing. And we have done well both in POL and non-POL sector. That means POL exports and non-POL exports. Now the question comes, why it has happened? What we have done so that this merchandise export has increased to India. If you see that the export of India has increased, but before that I would like to talk about something very interesting also, which I believe is going to be important from examination point of view. That is agriculture export. India has witnessed this time agriculture export also increased, particularly because of the demand of the staple across the globe. And in fact, it looks like agriculture has been our savior. You might have read all that already in the chapter 1 when the sir has discussed about the state of the economy, that agriculture was throughout good. Even India is now working a lot in the food processing and all, clearly indicating that we are promoting agriculture export also. India's agriculture export is on the surge. We are calling it now sunrise sector. You might have heard from top to total. Special initiatives to farmer producers organization and what not, and that is made possible with agencies like, and you can say, Export Inspection Council, then APIDA. APIDA is primarily for what is called food products export development. You have already read about it in agriculture sector of that particular chapter. So all these things, even we are now having online issuance of certificate of export. So that certificate of export is something which is getting online. Even Krishi Udan, I think, is another very important development for the agriculture export. So a lot of things has been done. Because of that, our export in agriculture has increased. Even the demand of what is called meat of various categories has been also surged, and India has exported that. So if you read that particular agriculture chapter, where you have already discussed that all these demand has increased, that's the reason why India's agriculture export has gone up. Now here I would like to bring a personal, this is my grudge, that why economic survey missed that part. I think this should have given at least one column for defense export also. That this is something which this year has witnessed India's defense export also increasing. Though in the detail, if you see the next detail they had given, when they have given the detail of the export items, in that defense has been, but I was personally of the opinion that they should have brought it to notice also. That defense export of India has also increased, and we are now changing our gears. Earlier, when India is such a big importer, we are now trying to be exporter, and a lot of things are being done. In fact, one of the not so reported news is the way our defense minister went to Mozambique. Then as I already told you that we had given a submarine to Myanmar, and there are list of items, though these items are mentioned in the annexure list. If you read the, obviously you are not supposed to read that, but if you see that detail in the annexure, they had given that which export item. But defense export is also contributing to the export in rise in India, and this is a promising sector. In fact, all that defense attaches across the globe has been now directed to showcase India's potential. As per the India's, we have a policy for the defense production since 2018. So agriculture export has gone up. That's a very good news, because India still have massive potential in terms of export of agri-food items. I would like to bring to your notice particularly here, which I think for this year's examination could be very significant, that 2023 will be International Year for Coarse Grains, as said by FAO on the request of India. And back home in India, we are one of the largest producers of the coarse grain globally. So that, I'm sure next year when we will be talking about the agriculture export, maybe this will be given the upper hand. That agriculture export has already increased, and that's why a lot of things has been taken to promote what is called the coarse grains. So agriculture export has gone up. That's a very good sign, knowing this fact that a larger population depends on the agriculture income directly, indirectly. So agriculture income is on the surge, overall merchandise export is on the surge. Did you notice, was there any take home? No, except one, and that was that $300 billion we have touched within 9 months. That means that landmark has been achieved. Besides that, you're not supposed to mug up that how much of export data. What you should know, the general behavior, that we did well, and this is because of financial support system. This is because of various other kind of policy push, and at the same time, if you can see that how we got set of process reforms. Agriculture sector has done well because of the agencies like particularly Export Inspection Council, which has made the things rather easier, and APIDA, which is continuously working on potentials of the food sector, food industry. And when food processing industry goes up, trust me, the bottom line of our population also get benefited. This is our objective. So keeping this in mind, you can say that our agriculture export has gone up. Now, this is what is a quick idea. This you should be aware of. General behavior of the top 5 import and export. Petroleum products, we are exporting. Pearls, precious, semi-precious stones, we are exporting. This is India's one of the very promising business again. Share in percentage, you can see roughly 15% is the petroleum. That's why I told you we call it POL, and rest we call it non-POL. So if you read somewhere POL export and non-POL export, you understand it. So 15% is petroleum. Pearls, precious, semi-precious stone 6.8, iron and steel 6%, drugs, formulation and biological. I would like to bring you a special notice here. I believe this is something. And when I'm saying that these are important, I hope you're taking a note of it. Drug formulation, biological. Look, you say now, if somebody hits 6 on one ball, it might be just a chance, fletch what you call. But what if he's again hitting? That means something is there, he's a good batsman. This is second year in the row that we are doing wonderful in the pharma sector. Last year also, it was second best. If I could bring you the information from the last year, 2020, it was the second best. Now it is the 4th best because other sectors started responding. This clearly indicates that very potential which the Prime Minister has highlighted, which the policy frameworks are saying, and our Finance Minister had said in the budget speech last year that pharma sector of India is very potential, is having massive potential, and we have potential to be the world, you can say, pharma store. I believe here onwards, more you can say focus will be visible here, because 2 years in the row doing wonderful clearly indicates that we are fundamentally right. 1 year might be because last year was because of COVID and drug demand and all, but now again if we are doing wonderful 2 years in a row is good enough to see that behavior. that India has the potential, and we are now having what is called PLIs and other incentives in the drugs also, particularly in the not only in direct drug selling, but other associated items in the medical field, bioinformatics and all these kind of things. That's why the category has been called direct formulation biological. I would like to bring your notice on this. So be careful, it is in top 4. And the 5th one is gold and other precious metal jewelry. We are continuously importing the gold. This is something which government is trying to work upon, that how we can reduce our dependence on gold. That's why you might have heard of indexion of what is called inflation index bond, sovereign gold bond. All that is to reduce the demand of the gold so that we can reduce the import, but still we are. So these are the top 5 items. Top 5 items. Again, it should be very clear, it should be at your fingertips. That first one is petroleum product which we are exporting. Pearl precious, semi-precious stone which we are exporting, iron steel we are exporting, drug formation we are exporting, gold and other precious metals we are exporting, but the gold we are importing also, that we'll see in the second part. That's where the balance need to be done. So when gold based jewelries, this is where we are exporting good. When it comes to gold, we are importing. This balance need to be sought. So top 5 items of export, petroleum product, that is continuously coming up. Then precious stones, semi-precious stones, what is called pearl, precious and semi-precious stone. Third is iron steel. Iron steel has gone little up this time. And drug formulation, biological, and then gold and other precious metal jewelries. These are the top 5 exports of India. This data is not required for you. Trust me, no, I had just presented it to tell you so that now it's very clear 15% is the petroleum product and the difference. So now you should have a rough idea that only item which is above 10 is petroleum product, that is 15. That's why we have 2 categories, fuel and non-fuel, and the rests are hovering around 6, 7, 2, 3, 4, but these are the top 5 items. One more thing I have not mentioned yet, but I would like to tell you. As I just told you that even the demand of other kind of meats of animals, fish, etc. has increased, our marine products also has come into top 10 now. So you know, the marine products are in the top 10 export. In the original economic survey, 10 items are given. Generally in the examination point of view, top 5 items are important. That's why we are talking about type 5 here. But I would like to bring to your notice that even marine products are now in top 10. That's a good thing. When it comes to import, if you see petroleum crude, I told you we are helpless, we can't help it. Then gold is we are importing, that is something a concern. Petroleum products we are also importing in different capacities. Pearls, precious, semi-precious stone we are importing, and coal, coke and briquette. Obviously because you know we are dependent upon coal for thermal power. So coal, coke and briquette. Briquette is another something which is used for burning purposes. So coal, coke and briquette, all the 3 for the largely burning purposes is something which we are importing. So these are top 5 importing items. I hope it's clear to you. So before moving further, again I would like to get it to your notice that top 5 products are petroleum products which we are exporting. Petroleum product we are exporting. Then we are having what is called precious, semi-precious stone, iron, steel. Then we have what is called drug. Then we have what you can call as gold and related jewelries. These are the exports. Import, petroleum, which is helpless we are, gold. This is where we are trying to work that we can reduce the gold import. Then we have what is called petroleum products importing. Then we have what is called pearl stones we are also importing. And then we have coal, coke and briquette. Now some of you might be wondering, sir, why we are having pearl, precious, semi-precious stones importing? Because India is a hub of jewelry industry. So we buy the raw and we sell the process. So I think that's a good idea. If we are buying the raw and selling the process with the value addition, that is a good idea. That's the reason why you can see this entry, particularly precious and semi-precious stone and gold are in both export and import. But gold import is still very high, that needs to be reduced is what government think, because in India still, if you see, people are investing a lot in terms of gold. So this is how we got when we talk about import commodities and export commodities. Take a quick reference and reading 1 or 2 times after the class, you can close your eyes and can try to recall, but this should be in your mind. That petroleum product, semi-precious stone, iron, steel, drugs and what is called gold related jewelries are the top 5 export. Petroleum, crude, gold, petroleum product, pearl stones and coal coke briquette are the top 5 import. So this is how we got export and import. By and large, this is the balance sheet. Which country, if you see that, if I could tell you that export destinations, which are the countries where the export destination are maximum, largely it remains USA, UAE and China. If you see that top 10 export destinations, USA, UAE and China. China, Bangladesh, Hong Kong, Singapore, even Bangladesh has gone up. So USA, UAE and China, this is close, thing. We can say that the top 10 export destination when we are exporting the maximum is USA, UAE and China. The matter is very close in terms of USA and UAE. However, in case of China, you can say little lesser. One thing I would like to bring to your notice here also, which I believe could be a potential question, that is the Belgium. Look at the 9th entry, Belgium. Belgium was never in top 10, I should say. Malaysia is now out, Belgium is in. So be careful. If I say maximum is the country where we are exporting maximum, USA, UAE and China, these top 3, that is understandable, USA, UAE, China. But in the top 10 we have Belgium also now. Belgium was not earlier in top 10, Malaysia is out, Belgium is in. This way you can say that we got top 10 export destination where we are exporting. So this is where we are exporting. So maximum export is to US, even including other kind of, So USA is one of our biggest client, you can say that way. And then UAE and China. UAE is again one of the trusted. China's our balance of trade is, we have a lot of export also, we have a lot of import also. Then here, don't mug it up, but I wanted that I should show this graph to you. This graph is again taken from economic survey, and the graph is clearly indicating that how the agriculture production, I would like to bring your notice here, that there is increase into the agriculture export. Just to substantiate what I had said, that agriculture export is increasing, and I am very sure that next time even it may go further up. So if you see that we are doing wonderful. We have not come up to, you can say, up to the mark, but agriculture export is something which is growing. And that is something. So if you see that agriculture export has gone up and down overall, but agriculture export is something which we are working upon, and this is something which has a futuristic thing. That's why we got what is called that kind of thing, top to total, food processing, a lot of things have been done. In fact, I would like to bring to your notice that sometime the government push could be so useful. Look, the Kisan Sampada is very clearly visible. Just for my readers, I would like to tell that there was a very ambitious food processing and agriculture export orientation with a scheme called PM Kisan Sampada. So that has clearly proven that how our agriculture trajectory has improved in terms of export. In fact, the new agriculture policy is also focusing upon increasing the export sizably. So agriculture export is something which you should be a little careful about, that has improved if you see from 2020. So that's how we got when we talk about how we are having this idea of agriculture export. Even better data will come next year when we'll do the comparison. I'm sure it is as of now provincial data. It's my personal opinion that next year data will show that we were better than that. But then even safely assuming, we can say from the 2020 in 2021, in the 9 months of time, our agriculture you can say export has increased. Now this was the pie diagrammatic representation of the export destination. At least you should remember the first 3, that is USA, UAE and China. If you could remember Bangladesh and Hong Kong, Bangladesh is now our trusted partner. So USA, UAE, China, Bangladesh and Hong Kong. Now some of you might be thinking, why Hong Kong separately than the China? Why not together? Well, in economical, we are least bothered about your political scenario out there, whether the Hong Kong is in China or not. In the economic scenario, right from the GATS days, Hong Kong's data is viewed separately, not in with the China. So that's how USA, UAE, China, Bangladesh, Hong Kong, these are the top 5 exports we had. And then the new entry is the Belgium. That is what even the survey has highlighted. So this is how the questions are made. So what we'll look at, whether you're aware of this new order or not. So Belgium is in top 10. Now moving ahead, if you see the export destination, as I told you, USA remain the top. USA remain the top, and that's how we got what is called all that, how we got USA, UAE and China, and Belgium replacing Malaysia. We got what is called and more than 40% of India's exports still by the 7 countries. So all that what was reflected in the graph I had said here, I think this will suffice your requirement if the question is asked in the prelims even. So be careful, USA, UAE and China are the top 3. Belgium is the new entrant at the 9th place, and of the total export of India, more than 40% belongs to only top 7 countries. So that's how we got. I hope it's clear. So we were now we are, let's have a quick recapitulation. We have discussed so far what is the external behavior of the country. Global behavior was not that good. Despite that, India has done wonderful. Now we are looking into, we are having the balance sheet of the merchandise export. India has done well in the export. We have looking into what is the overall report card of the export. We have also seen that which are the items which we are exporting, top 5, and top 5 item which we are importing, and we have seen that which is our maximum export destination, that is USA. So USA, UAE and China, and then Belgium is the new entrant. Moving ahead, why this has happened? If you see that we are continuously working upon various trade agreements. If you see that India is working on various trade agreements, and during the last few years India has initiated its trade agreement with various forums. If you see that Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement between India and Australia, FTA and European Union has been there. In fact, we are continuously working with various countries in terms of FTA to make sure that our export is increasing. So India is continuous in talk with set of countries, Canada, UAE, and once you got FTA agreements as per the guidelines of WTO, once you got that free trade agreement, definitely your export is promoted. So there are negotiations going on with the UK. In fact, there was a news, if you have read today's newspaper also, regarding that we are working upon it, and I think this will be a big victory if we get what is called final things finalized with the UK also, that how we are going to have, and India is trying to ensure that where we can do the export. So which item where, and that is why we are continuously working upon or you can say fostering our free trade agreements and other kind of statuses with our trading partners, bilaterally and multilaterally also. So for those who are not that much informed about these things, I would like to say that generally what happens, that if I want to promote my export to a particular country, I can have what is called a bilateral agreement, or we can reach to a multilateral forum which deals with set of countries. So this way we are not leaving any stone unturned. We are ensuring that we are reaching to every place from where we can increase our trade, because needless to say, if export is increased, that means back home production will increase, employment will increase, and export is a ticket of prosperity of a country. That's the reason why. Now this is my personal favorite, and I believe if I had to make a question on this entire, I could have picked up this question for 2 purposes, so that my students are well aware of it. I think student will be misnomer, because it might be diversified set of people listening. So the listeners, if you see that this is my personal favorite, and I would like you that you should be taking a proper note of it in your list, that why it has happened and what are the initiatives done. In fact, this kind of questions are asked, that India's export is on a good trajectory, what are the reasons behind it, what has been done by the government for it, and so on and so forth. So if you see, there are a lot of things which has been done. One very popular is RODTEP. RODTEP was one of them very discussed. Those who are in any capacity related to the export will understand how it's beneficiary now. RODTEP, as the name itself says, remission of duties and taxes on export products. If anyone having a background might be knowing that earlier we have what is called MCIS. So merchandise, when we say export of India, merchandise export of India scheme, MEIS, but that scheme was not showing compliance with WTO. Now we got this remission of duties and taxes on export products, ROTTEP. And there were certain challenges in MEIS also. Like one challenge was that set of taxes were not being repaid and all. So what is this? It simply means in the process of export, if you had paid any tax, any duty, it can be reversed to you. So you can give an input for it. So this is what is very welcoming move, and that's why I particularly have mentioned here that merchandise export from India has been discontinued now. And if you see that now we are even electricity duty, value added tax, and even these are transferable also. I'm not going to that detail here, that is not required, but this scheme should be in your mind very clearly, that this scheme says that all those this is popularly called as ROTTEP. So ROTTEP is promoting export. Why? Because A, it is as per the WTO compliance, it reverts all the duties in the process, and they are transferable also, that you can transfer from one unit to another or from one exporter to another exporter. So these scripts can be transferred also. So this is definitely one of the very welcoming move which has created a very positive atmosphere of export in India. People are coming into that. Then developing district as export hubs. This is the new approach. We are looking in each district as one export item. So each district should be focusing upon one export item, and the entire infrastructure and etc. will be prepared so that they are doing better export. Then what is called, we have production linked incentives, where we are providing them incentives on the basis of the production they are doing. Then electronic platform for preferential certificate of origin. I hope you are knowing. If not, just a quick reference that certificate of origin is these days very important to know that exactly from where that thing is coming. So if you are exporting from India, we give now digital certificate of origin. That definitely is one of the reasons why exporters are attracted of India as a destination. So India is now having what is called electronic platform for certificate of origin. District wise, each district is now export hub, and then we are what is called ROTTEP. This is something which is definitely promoting the export in India. Then if you see, at the same time we have schemes like infusion of capital in the Exim Bank. I hope you are aware of it, that one of the very important banks of India called Export Import Bank is working since 1982, dedicated for the export. They only not give export credit or loan, but at the same time facilitate you everything which is required for export business. Their infusion has been increased by 750 crore. That means, then we have what is called Export Credit Guarantee Corporation of India Limited. This is taking credit guarantee so that even in the COVID uncertainties, the exporters are not shy of working hard. So that has been done. Export Promotion Capital Goods scheme has come up for the procurement from the indigenous manufacturers. And then trade infrastructure for export, market access initiatives, special economic zones, etc., etc. has been there. So I had brought it to your notice. Obviously, why today in this session? Because generally, when we, even good students, very good students who are listening me here, there might be aware of all those things, loosely speaking. But then even this is where you miss the bus. You should, wherever you're making your notes, you should take a proper note of all these schemes at one place. It can be directly asked in prelims, and often the questions are asked in mains, particularly regarding that what initiatives has been taken. In that you start bluffing, or you just give only one or two schemes which were in the current affairs. You should have the wide bandwidth of major schemes, from governance promotion to the finance promotion. Did you notice I had got two slides? One was for what has been done for the policy level and what has been done for finance. And this is not my own, this is what exactly Economic Survey has done. Going back to the statement from which I started the day, it's a flagship document, and they do it meticulously. When I'm saying meticulously, I mean it. That the way they design it clearly indicates that a battery of intellectuals is sitting there having brainstormings and then identifying what should be missed. So did you notice on the entire chapter, the only grudge I have is the defense, though the detail has been provided. That shows the kind of quality of the document they provide to us at one place. So please take a proper note of these schemes, that how all these things and so and so. So I hope now it's clear to you that the chapter has given us a list of from what has been done from ROTTEP to what is called district promotion to what is called capital infusion and emergency credit guarantee company, and all these kind of facilities to ensure that I have been knowing that there is National Credit Guarantee Trustee Company of the Government of India and the Ministry of Finance, which takes care of all the guarantees. So within that we got Export Credit Guarantee Corporation of India also. So all that is being done to make sure, in short, the process reforms are worked. So did you notice that approach was visible? The process reforms. That's what I started that conversation with. That a lot of places we have seen the process reforms might not be that reported in your day-to-day newspaper, but Economic Survey provides us a very good detail of that. So this is how we got major schemes. Then we got, if you say, merchandise import. In terms of import, again the data is something which I have already shared with you, that when it comes to import, our import has gone now slightly up than the previous year. The reason being because crude oil import started. It's very natural. I told you in the beginning, having what is called trade surplus by not having import of oil because economic activity is not taking place is not a good idea. Replacing oil is a good idea, but if you are not having economic activities as it was there in the lockdown, does not make sense. So keeping this in mind, the merchandise import has slightly increased, and it's not something to be worried about. It's very natural. It's like that, you came back on the track. And that's what is the detail here provided. And among the top 10 countries from import origin, China, UAE and USA. Still we have what is called China, from where we have the maximum import. So maximum import from China, then UAE and USA. So did you notice USA, UAE, China is export, China, UAE and USA is export. Not that difficult to remember. So when it comes to import, China is one, UAE and USA. When it comes to export, USA is one, UAE and China. That's how we got the top three remain the same with a changing order. So that's how, and in fact this time you can say Indonesia has also came up into the scene, because I'm sure in agriculture you might have heard of it, that palm oil import has increased suddenly because of our dependence. So that's one of the reasons why we can see that merchandise import is something which has, and Indonesia came into the limelight because of that crude palm oil which we are importing, which was our necessity back home, because our oil prices, particularly of the edible oil prices, has increased. So keeping this in mind, this is the quick reference of the merchandise import. What you have to remember, that import has gone up primarily because of the crude oil, and otherwise if you see that Indonesia made a presence in terms of crude oil, palm oil, and very importantly the top three remain China, UAE and USA, while in export top three remain USA, UAE and China. I hope not that difficult to remember. This is what is the import sources. This is the list given just for information. China, UAE, USA, as I told you, this is the top three, and you can say Indonesia is something which has made its mark, and this is the detail. This is just for understanding that every year they give the idea of trade balance. So how much we are exporting to that country, importing to that country, and whenever we see the minus, that means this is where we are having more import than export. Not important from us from examination point of view, but you should develop this habit of once in a while looking into these kind of statistics here and there. So if you see, this is how the Department of Commerce tells us that by and large with China you can say maximum minus trade balance. That means we are importing more from China. So that's how we got this idea of trade balance. So trade balance is net value, that how we are exporting and how much we are importing. So already have told you that China, UAE and USA, these are import. Please be careful, this is how they can twist. China, USA, UAE, USA, import. USA, UAE, China, import. Indonesia made a mark this time, and there you have seen Belgium made a mark. Now moving ahead, when it comes to service exports, services, so now you can remember the chart I have started with. So in the current account, by and large trade wise we are good. Our export has increased, we have understood why it has increased, where it has increased, We have also seen that what has been done for its increase. Import has slightly increased, that is natural. So we can see that trade deficit had started, but situation is much better than earlier. When it comes to services, this is where we are doing wonderful, needless to say, and this has been our savior. One reason was because softwares, computers, and all these kind of things, if you see, that is something in the COVID, as things were going online, we had got obviously more export on this part, and then even when it comes to import, various kind of payments we are doing in different places and so and so. So if you see, technically speaking, by and large, services have done wonderful. I had given you here a list. The top 3 are computer, business and transport services, and they constituted almost 80% of it. Almost the same was the trend last year. Clearly indicate that though the trade is good, but this is where economic survey has already shown the fear, the concern, and I'm sure you have read that in services, that our contact intensive services are now almost shrinked. If you see, 80% belongs only to these things. So contact intensive services, hospitality and trade and what you call category 1 services, they are not in a way revitalizing, even in terms of export. So this is where we need to focus upon. We had started earlier called Untitled Bharat and these kind of things for export in terms of tourism and all. That got a setback. This data is clearly indicating that though trade services surplus is there, but we need to focus upon. That's why in economic survey, special focus they had mentioned about that how the time has come for contact intensive industries. Service import by and large, if you see that this is very natural because various services we are taking in different countries, in logistics, in various payment methods and all that. So that's very natural. I won't go into further, but they had given the reference of some of the banking institutions also that who have done where. So this is how we got when we talk about services. So services wise, we are you can say in a very good situation. And the credit goes to the computer, business and transport. So if you see that financial services etc. has also boomed up. You have already discussed in detail about the services, so we are not stepping into that. But trade in services, as in this chapter has been mentioned, to be good. If you see that we had reached to the you can say pre-pandemic time. But then even the concern is that our contact intensive industry is shrinking. And why it is important? Because contact intensive industries are big employment generator, and they have a connecting link also. Whenever a hotel is growing, the nearby shops and a lot of things, or whenever tourism is growing, so many people get employment from formal to informal. So keeping this in mind, we need to focus upon that part, especially in the service export, in tourism etc. is what survey has brought to notice. So nothing much to take home. The only thing you have to remember is that services has gone a positive trajectory, and the maximum is because of computer, business and transportation, and 80% is of the total services now belongs to these 3 categories. Now moving ahead, if you see the private transfers by and large has been H1 means half of the year. The net private transfers mainly representing remittances by Indian employed overseas. So as I told you that we are continuously, did you notice? It has been continuously increasing since 2008. So overall, if you see, the transfers has improved. We are still the best country in terms of remittances, receiving remittances. Overall, our invisible is higher. So what is the current account balance? So now that's why in the beginning I told you current account, first we have seen in trade, then we have seen in services. Trade, we are doing wonderful in export. Import has also increased because of the crude oil demand has increased, which is a good sign. What led to the export, that you know now. In terms of services, we are doing wonderful. We are in the surplus, we are in the pre-pandemic time, but the concern is that our contact intensive industries are shrinking. We need to provide a fresh impetus to them. Service import is something which is limited and something which is unavoidable because we have to do all these things for transfers and all. Overall, remittances are good. So what is the exact current account situation? Means that entire, including trade and invisibles. If you see, we are in little deficit now, and the deficit is acceptable because the crude oil demand has increased. So that's how we have seen. Last year we were little positive for the time being, but current account deficit has increased, and that is fine. We are well within the range. In fact, there is one thing called, if you see the situation, this deficit is not something which is clearly indicating that our export has got a sabotage. It shows that our crude price has increased, and that's very natural. The crude oil is, and that is the reason why we are continuously working on the renewable energy and ethanol blending and so many things, hydrogen mission, so that we can make sure that our dependence upon this thing is, which is our biggest challenge in our current account. So this is how that provided the balance sheet of the current account. I hope it's clear to you. Moving ahead, what is the situation of capital account? FDI, we are doing wonderful. Singapore, again the very promising country to us. The maximum FDI is coming from Singapore. So if you see that, overall the report is saying that net capital flow has increased. It has tripled. If you see, that's a good idea. It has tripled, and external commercial borrowing, FDI, etc. So overall, as FDI is concerned, FDI has improved in India. So if you see net FDI recorded what is called inflow. By the way, overall if you see the situation of FDI, overall situation of FDI is something which you can say is in good shape. Though there was little moderation, and that is acceptable. We understand that back home in USA, what they are doing is now they are trying to bring set of reforms, because in USA what has happened, as you know, that government has provided a lot of support system, and now they are also looking to structural reforms. Many countries are trying to get back on the track. So keeping this in mind, there was some moderation in FDI, but by and large FDI inflow is very encouraging, the way we are having FDI coming into. So FDI is good, no doubt about it. Overall, if you see, the capital flow is good, and we are having FDI coming good. Borrowing has also increased, needless to say, external commercial borrowing increasing is not that bad, provided it is something which is creating more employment opportunities and industrial growth. So when companies are taking loan from the outside, that clearly means that they are more into what is called active mode. So not that bad a situation. Even SDR allocation has slightly increased by the IMF. So these are the reasons why our capital account has done. So as I told you, in capital account, all the three, FDI, we are doing good. FBI is something which is little into fluctuating zone. FDI has shown some moderation overall, if you see, but that is acceptable, knowing the fact that globally now every economy is trying to revitalize in some or the other way, and things are changing in the global scenario. Then if you see that this is what is top investing countries FDI equity inflow: Singapore, USA, Mauritius. These are the top three. Naturally, these are the top three. So Singapore is remaining at the top, USA, Mauritius, Netherlands, Japan. If you see, that is how we got what is called by and large. So Singapore is something which is coming with the maximum, then USA and then Mauritius. And if you see that, so when it comes to the top 10 investing countries, so be careful, it is in Singapore, USA and Mauritius. By and large, these three, this is something related to the service industry, that where we are. So Singapore, USA and Mauritius. FDI portfolio investment remained volatile, though, as I just told you, that there is some volatility in the FPI. And why it remained volatile? Because there is an assumption of taper tantrum 2.0. What is this taper tantrum? In very layman's term, taper tantrum is the term used when in 2008 subprime crisis happened. So Barack Obama, when became president there, he came up with a lot of rescue plans, means giving a lot of money to the system so that they can rescue. When Barack Obama joined the office in 2009, he came up with a lot of rescue plans, means government has pumped a lot of money in the system. That has related into the inflation in the US. So now, just to taper the inflation, that inflation which has increased, how we can reduce it, they came up with what's called taper tantrum. That's popularly called taper tantrum, where they started increasing the bond prices, the interest rates and all. And suddenly we have seen that investors from across the globe started going back to the USA. This was called taper tantrum. However, this time again the same problem is there, that across the globe we have seen that inflation is rising up. Even in USA also we have seen stagflation situation. Stagflation is that situation where inflation is also high and unemployment is also high. So now America is going again for what is called taper tantrum 2.0. So keeping all these things in mind, FPI portfolio is fluctuating. So what is there in the capital account? FDI is good, though there was some moderation, but by and large good. FPI is fluctuating. We can't trust much, but you can say fluctuating. Not that bad, not that good, sometime very bad, sometime very good. That kind of thing is going on quarterly basis. So it's fluctuating. That's why I had given the heading here, foreign portfolio investment remained volatile. And banking capital, if you see, by and large, if you compare with it, so as I mentioned, that banking capital recorded net inflow, the money has increased. So overall, if you see that our capital account is in positive and the overall balance of payment remains in positive. So we are having enough of forex reserve now, as per the latest data we got from the RBI, which economic survey has referred to, that is we are 4th largest in terms of forex reserve. So this is how BOP balance is good, and India remains, as I mentioned it, 4th largest forex reserve. So at the end of the November 2021 data, India is the 4th largest forex reserve, and the import cover of India's foreign exchange reserve declined though slightly. Earlier we had that much of money which was good enough to meet our demand of 17 months of import. Now it is 13 months, but not a bad deal. In fact, if I could refer to when Sanjeev Sanyal was briefing it to the media, when the economic survey was, he said that we are very aware that it has reduced to 13, but it's not that bad a situation. 13 is a good amount. It's not a bad amount. It's a good amount. 13 months we are sitting at that much of dollar because of the surplus in the capital account, so that we can meet our import needs of 13 months. It's a decent situation. So overall balance of payment is something which is in a good shape. Again, I'll talk about that. So now you understood it, how the details has been given. So balance of payment is in good situation. Trade has gone up both on export and import. A lot of things has been done for the promotion of export. Import is naturally increasing now, and we got the deficit primarily because of the dependence on the crude oil. On the other hand, I have told you that how we got what is called services going up, but they have confined only to the computer, logistics and business. That is something which we need to be a little careful about. Contact intensive services needs revitalization and special focus upon. Then transfers are doing good. Remittances, India still remain the first despite this COVID mayhem. And then on the other hand, I told you in the capital account, FDI was decent. There's some moderation, but by and large decent. And it's because of the kind of what's called promotion we are doing in various sectors, from insurance to others. In fact, I'm sure by the time this data was written, since then 2-3 major change has happened. Like we got a very important development in insurance sector, where government what's called government insurance company refinancing share has gone down. So all that kind of thing, obviously we are not going here, but I'm sure you have read about it, that what is obligatory cessation has been reduced from 5 to 4% in the insurance sector. That means more FDI will come in insurance. A lot of things has been done. So maybe by the final data is arriving, we can see that India is even more in terms of services. So services we are good, remittances we are good, overall services we are good, but the worry is services we are doing wonderful, that's very happy situation, but the worry is our contact intensive services, which are employment generators largely, they need some kind of special package, it looks like. And that's why they had said very clearly that on and off approach should be discontinued. This economic survey has emphasized upon it that on and off approach in terms of lockdown in these contact intensive should go away. We should figure out now other alternatives. But I told you that's not binding to the government. So this is how we got when we talk about how they talk about balance of payment. Overall situation is good, and you can say that FPI going on a roller coaster ride, understandable because of taper tantrum and all, but situation is good. And in forex reserve we are 4th largest, we are more than 600 billion now, and clearly indicating that India is in a good shape in considering external sector. There are some other things, like when it comes to exchange rate. exchange rate has been doing not that bad. The money has depreciated if you compare. So India's rupee has depreciated, but here they had made a comparison. I have not gone that much into detail here because in the discussion that is not important, but survey has talked about that how India's currency has not that depreciated if we compare with other major currencies globally. What is important to you, like I had just mentioned that how we are much better than Turkish lira, Argentinian peso, and so and so. So if you see in their comparison, we are better. But what I want your personal focus upon, NEER and REER, that is nominal effective exchange rate and real effective exchange rate, now we have used the latest data. For those who are informed already, know the subject, I would like to correct them now, and those who are first time listening, now you should be careful that NEER and REER baskets has been changed, and this data is with the new basket. Earlier we had NEER 6 and REER 6 and NEER 36 and REER 36. It was 6 and 36. This time it is 40, 6 and 40. So we have changed the commodities. So from 36 we have increased to 40. Does that mean we have added 4 currencies only? No. 8 has been added and 4 has been deleted. Now which are deleted, that is not important, the survey provides the detail, but then even 6 and 40. 6 and 40, this is, and the base year has been changed now. The new base year is 2015-16. Now this makes a wonderful question for prelims. I have reason to believe that this might be asked. So be careful. RBI for the calculation of NEER and REER has changed the base year. That's why I got a special focus here. 2015-16 is the new base year, and the baskets are 6 and 40. When I say 6 major partners, 40 means the significant trade partners with their effective exchange rate. Situation is not that bad. Overall, you can see that we have seen that there is rupee depreciation. Rupee depreciation trajectory is there, but be careful. Those who are my informed reader, I would like to recall them. I would be happy if they could recall it. You know why this question was asked in this year prelims. There was a logic. We are depreciating. India is depreciating in terms of currency, but we are not that worried, and we have not taken that over enthusiastic measure to control it either. We to some extent were in the wait and watch situation that let the currency depreciate a bit, because the thumb rule is if your currency depreciates, your export increases, and I have just given a complete emphasis that our priority is export. If currency depreciates, how, that you read in your routine classes, but when currency depreciates, export increases. Not a surprise, this year's prelims got a clear question on it. If currency depreciates, this necessarily happens. Now this is what I'm trying to tell you, that how economics are. So please, again, don't get into the rat race of remembering all the data, facts and figures. That's not significant. What is significant is the analysis and the trajectory on which it is going. So our rupee has depreciated, but is it really bad so that we get feverish? No. It should be not, it's not that bad considering this, it's not fluctuating much, A. And second, considering this, that it is going to help in export, which is our priority, So some of you might be wondering that, sir, depreciating rupee, how can be beneficiary? For this, you need to read little about that document, that whenever in any country import is more, currency appreciation is good. Whenever in any country export is more, currency depreciation is good. That's why China deliberately depreciates the currency at certain intervals. So this is how we got. However, if you are doing it deliberately, that's not a good thing, and that is what is called currency manipulators. India is definitely not a manipulator. This is the last thing I think we would like to be, though we are having the shadow by calling it, they are having a watchdog, that is India is also falling into the line or not. So this is how, be careful, the base years has been changed, and this calculation is in the new base year, and that's why we have seen that there is a slight appreciation in terms of real effective exchange rate term. So overall currency has depreciated, exchange rate has been on the depreciation side, and the new benchmarks are clearly indicating that, and that depreciation is not something we should be feverish about. It is something which clearly indicates, it's not a bone of contention in here, it's a clear thumb rule that whenever depreciation happens, export get promoted. So maybe we are into wait and watch situation. Now, net international investment position, this is also an important statistics which you should be aware of. It says that how much of Indian resident are having liability or assets towards other versus the non-resident of any country having liability asset towards India. So if you see that, that's why I had given the definition net international investment position. This is something which they have provided. So overall, if you see, the situation is good. Be careful what exactly the term is, that might be important, not this data that it is minus 11.3%. So India's net international investment position stood at this at the end of September 2021, a sustained improvement since end March. So you can say that things are improving continuously. So here the definition is important, that net international investment position, it is the difference between the value of financial assets of resident and an economy that are claimed on the non-resident. So how a resident of a country having what is called assets and liabilities towards non-resident and the vice versa. So we are having what is called liability, but that's fine, we are improving into that. That's something which they had provided, and this term might be significant for you. And then external debt balance sheet, if you see that whatever, as you are taking commercial borrowings, sovereign loans, etc., external debt situation is, if you see that at the end of it, it is 593.1 billion, which has grew up 3.9%. And then commercial borrowing is the reason for it. To some extent, even the US dollar value got appreciated, that's also responsible. And debt service ratio is, in simple words, debt service ratio, it's a very important indicator of balance of payment. Debt service ratio is that if I have to pay the interest or any principal amount, am I capable of it or not? So that is situation is, that's why I had said in brief, principal repayments and the interest payments. So overall the situation is good. Short-term debt in total external debt fell marginally, and from the medium term perspective, India's external debt continues to be below than optimal. So clearly indicating external debt, we are good. So this is how we, when we talk about the external sector. So let's have a quick look where we stand. If I give you the entire report card now, the report card is exports we are promoting, particularly the focus is now in institutional and process reforms, from financing to policies. In terms of export, we are doing good. In terms of import, it has increased, and overall its deficit, and that is helplessness because of the crude. The top 5 export you know, top 5 import you know, the top 3 destination you know, top 3 import destination from where the import is coming you know. Now you know that where we are in terms of what is called FDI, which is a good situation despite taper tantrum, and how the taper tantrum has definitely made our FPI volatile. Remittances are good, banking capital is good. Overall our external debt is something which is below the benchmark. We are good in situation, that is acceptable, and you can say external sector is by and large in the good health with a promising future in export. Currency has depreciated, but that depreciation is not out of the context, and the base years has been changed also. So this was in brief about, obviously when I'm saying brief, you might be wondering, is it really brief? Because we have taken almost, I should say 70-80 minutes, but barring the importance of the topic, its significance from the prelims and mains examination point of view, and my focus was to bring those key data and more important analysis so that you get your own understanding of the entire sector and you understand that how to move on. So this was about external sector. Now before I get into something, I would like to say one more thing here. Now you must be wondering, sir, we don't have much of time. So reading the entire chapter from the economic survey original document, is it really worth referring? I'll say yes. Read it, but again, as I just mentioned you, don't get into the data, don't get hyper for the data, that every data you are trying to mug up. You should be more into the behavioral analysis, the trend analysis, how it is with the key data which we have already discussed here. Even if you cannot, because obviously it depends where you stand in your preparation in revision, the vision, this is where I think our organization is helping you. We had already uploaded one document. I would like to show you quickly that document if it is available here. No. All right. So this is how we got when we talk about this. Now moving ahead, the next thing I will be discussing, as I told you in the beginning, we will talk about two chapters today. One was external sector, now the next is sustainable development. Now, yes, before I move further, now it's available. Sir, you stay here for a moment. I might be requiring you again. Just for the students, I'd like to show you this document quick cursorily. So this is the document, it has been uploaded, that economic survey to 2021-22, and everything has been briefed here for your convenience. So if you see that these chapters you already know, I will directly come to the external sector. Whatever I said, everything is there. So you can read this also at least for a quick revision and for references. But if you are reading that also, the original document might be useful. But even if somebody is not reading the original document, I think this will largely help the purpose from the examination point of view. So whatever I discussed, I would like to show you that how in very few pages we try to show almost everything. Can you take me directly to the 6th chapter? The 6th chapter. This is 4th. Little down. Little down. Little up. थोड़ा सा और. Can you 3rd chapter पहले? All right, so now what we have just discussed, let me tell you cursorily that how in this notes which has been uploaded, everything is being said. So how the introduction, and then what is the global economic environment, whatever the situation in terms of trade, then top down export destination, everything. In fact, the same chart is here. So almost everything which I had said is available here. So you can refer to this also, or if you can read the original document, that is also very good. But that's little lengthier. So considering the constraint of time, this could be useful. One more thing we have added. Let's see where you stand now. This is just to re-look into that where you stand in terms of understanding of the chapter. So keeping this in mind, let's see where we stand now. Consider following statement regarding India's international trade. So India's agriculture export declined steadily over the last 5 years. You know, it's not. It has increased. US remained the top export destination during the current financial year. You know, it's right. So this way you can have a quick recapitulation. Similarly, the Global Survey on Digital and Sustainable Trade Facilitation, I had given you in the brief there in the notes that it is something from United Nations Economic and Social Commission that shows that our logistics has improved. Which of the following are the major export commodities? Is iron and steel? Yes, you know, in top 5. Vegetable oils? No. Marine products? Yes, in top 10. Plastic raw material? No. So you know the answer accordingly. Then similarly, which of the following can influence in India's capital account? You know that what are the heads of the capital account. You can give a try to these questions, and for mains we had given you 2 questions. Pandemic related stimulus programs in advanced economies have reignited some fear of taper tantrum. Now I hope you're knowing it. However, India's external sector is resilient to such external shock because our FDI is better, our export is promoting, so we are not that much dependent upon taper tantrum as we were in the last year. In fact, there is a complete detail of it given in the economic survey. And an efficient, competitive and resilient logistic ecosystem is pivotal to boost export. As I already told you that we need to work upon infrastructure and process reforms in that logistic. A lot of things has been done in terms of logistics, including even the Gati Shakti mission, where various departments are coming together. Little part of this logistic system we will do also tomorrow in that industry and infrastructure, and then we'll discuss what is this Gati Shakti and why it is significant, where so many ministers are coming together for a holistic approach. So this is how we had tried to give you a question also. So this was about the export sector. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and now you got a fine understanding that what exactly balance of payment is, what are this, various heads, and that's why any country's report card should talk about all these heads. Current account, we are improving, export is improving, import dependence is there. Services we are better, but contact intensive services needs reform. Remittances we are good, capital is good, but external commercial borrowing is there, and otherwise we are sitting at the heap of 13 days import. Our current overall balance of payment is a good situation. Debt service is good, external debt is high because of your external commercial borrowing. We had witnessed some exchange rate fluctuation also, and the base year has been changing to that. So this is about the external sector. Now move towards another one. So the next chapter I will be taking care of is about the sustainable development and so I hope this document is very useful to all of you. After the class I request you that please go and read that document also, where almost everything is mentioned. Don't go for again mugging up the data. The data is just to see the behavioral pattern of the trends of the economy and some of the key data which we already discussed. Now this chapter is something which is on the other side. Again, I started the class with a good note, with the good news that India is doing wonderful in the renewable energy. We had achieved that landmark which we are supposed to achieve little later by this decade. Then India is now, I hope you're knowing that Prime Minister of India is being awarded as Champions of the Earth by the United Nations Environment Program, because he was one who had who has focused upon and brought this matter to the notice to the world that the time has come for what is called better renewable energy alliances and all, what you call green grids. Not a surprise, already question in this year's mains was there on the green grid, right? Green Grid initiative with the UK, which we started with. International Solar Alliance, as you know, headquartered at Gurugram, is doing wonderful, and now United Nations is also having observer status. Not only that, India has also taken a very important reform in terms of, you can say, leadership, not only reform, leadership, where we are looking into how disaster resilient infrastructure, it was in India's concept. So I can say very clearly that India is doing wonderful nationally, internationally in terms of challenges of sustainable development and climate change. What is very good in this chapter? I would like to say to my listeners, particularly those who are writing examination, that please take this chapter very seriously for 2 reasons. A, it is having some very important data. B, it is something which gives us very good insight about the climate change, way better than maybe almost 100 pages of write-up here and there. I think these 5-10 pages given in the economic survey briefs us better than the bunch of documents here and there. Now in this chapter, what they have highlighted about, obviously where we stand in sustainable development, and you know sustainable development are gauged by Sustainable Developmental Goals, SDG. So India, back home India, the Niti Aayog has made SDG India Index. They are continuously working upon it to look where we stand. The chapter talks about it. Then the chapter has talked about where we are in terms of land forest. Land forest, you know, forest is that area which is at least having 1 hectare of the area with at least 10% of the canopy, concentration. So that's how we got, they had given a stake of that where we are in the land forests, what is the state-wise distribution and the development into that. They had also talked about that where we are in terms of single-use plastic banning, and I think this is again very important from examination point of view, because by 2022, by the end of this year, I'm sure you're aware of it, that the thickness will be increased to 120 micron, because more the thickness easier for degradation. So plastic is single plastic use, what you call that plastic which is having what is called low utility and high littering potential. This is how UNEP defines what is single plastic. So all these kind of things has given a due attention in this chapter, along with where we are in the water, what about the air pollution, what has been done in the air pollution. So the chapter primarily talks about sustainable development, particularly in terms of overall sustainable development, in terms of water, in terms of forest, in terms of air pollution and plastic and other pollutants. Then they also talked about climate change. Now I think this is going to be very important for you, that they had given a complete detail, a wonderful writing about financing the climate change. This is another important thing, that they had given input about that how you can finance the climate change. So financing climate change got a special positioning, and then what India is. In fact, as we'll move further, initiative like LIFE, I can tell you that recently, if you're following the news 2-3 days back, again when Prime Minister was dealing with the international environment community, he talked about life again, that is lifestyle for environment. So a lot of things are going on. So this chapter is going to be very important, where at least one question in mains, and this is something which you can see the behavior from last 3-4 years. From this chapter, one direct question you can see in your mains examination coming up. We will figure out that where is the potential. It does not mean I'm guessing. It simply means that as it is the priority of the government, the logical deduction could be that they may ask this in examination. So this is how the first slide I try to tell you that what exactly we have in this slide. So in this chapter they had talked about SDG India Index, land forest, what is the single-use plastic and where we stand, and all these kind of stuff. Jal Shakti they had talked about, and Namami Gange project, air quality, and so on. So let's understand one of them one by one. So now, before getting into the next slide, I would like to say that alright, so when it comes to SDG, as you know, but then even as I tried to do it in the previous chapter also, that first giving you some basic information so that you can understand the chapter better. It was way back Kofi Annan was head of United Nations. He said that globally the entire world should come together and must make sure that every Homo sapiens on this earth, every individual, irrespective of caste, creed, etc., should be having some fundamental necessities met. And that's how we got way back the concept of MDG, Millennium Developmental Goals. Millennium Developmental Goals. In fact, the idea of sustainability itself, most of you are aware of, dates back to 1987 when United Nations has defined it, that what is sustainability. That means fulfilling our needs in such a way so that future generations' capability to fulfill their need is not compromised. This is one of the very influential definition I have ever read in my lifetime, that how in very few words they have said everything. This definition is coming from United Nations, that what is sustainability. So having said so, you can say that United Nations was continuously striving for ensuring that basic necessities of everyone is met. In 2015, when the MDG came to an end, we came up with a new thing called SDG, Sustainable Developmental Goals, SDG. That was going to continue till 2030. India is very much concerned on ensuring that we are at par with the SDG. Those who have read it, if not, please, you should be knowing about it, that SDG has a set of 17 targets, though it's actually 16 targets, and the 17th one is bringing international cooperation together, from what is called no poverty to what is called zero hunger, to education for all, health for all, education for all, gender empowerment, safe drinking water and sanitation, affordable energy, then decent work, industries and innovations, then reducing inequalities, to sustainable cities, responsible consumption, climate actions, to what is called life below water, life on earth, and peace and justice. These are the 16 targets in the same order, and the 17th one is what you can say international cooperation. This is what is called SDG. Back home we are looking into where we stand, and Niti Aayog makes a report card for it, and that report card is called SDG India Index. In this report card we collect the data from various states and we see which state is where. I hope you are aware of it, that Niti Aayog is continuously trying to create more healthy competition between the states to achieve these targets. This is what you call competitive cooperative federalism. That means states are having healthy competition. So to promote that competition further, we got the ranking, and that is called SDG India Index. In that, those states which are having, the ranking is from 0 to 100, those states which are 0 to 50, they are between 0 to 50 they are called aspirants, as 50 to 64 are called what is performers, and then 65 to 99 are called front runners, that they are taking the lead, and if anyone is having 100%, it's called achiever. If you see, in fact this is what we try to show here, that 0 to 49 aspirant, 50 to 64 performer, 65 to 99 front runner, and 100 as achiever. This is the classification. If you see, the good news is that we are continuously improving. Like this year we got 22 front runners, that means they are between 65 to 99. Last year we had 10. If you see the data to compare with, clearly indicates that we are doing wonderful. India is doing wonderful overall also, where the rank has improved from 60 to 66. And we are doing wonderful, particularly if you see in terms of safe and sanitation and safe drinking water, renewable energy, in terms of health, in terms of education, even in climate actions, and so on and so forth. So if you see, India is by and large is doing wonderful in terms of SDG targets. Clearly indicates, as I told you in the beginning, that there is no paradigm shift. The government is as concentrated and focused upon the welfare as the constitution commits. But as the constitution is directing, our priority is always social welfare, clearly visible. If you see the SDG India Index, Kerala is still ranked first. If you see that we had Kerala at the top. I had given you the overall data that Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Himachal are in the top, Bihar, Jharkhand and Assam at the bottom, front runners 22 now, and overall performance has improved. These are the three take homes that you should be aware of. However, this data is little older if you see from examination perspective, because when this report came, after that you got a full-fledged mains, a prelims also. So I don't think this data might be that significant from examination point of view directly in the prelims, but you can use this data in the mains if required here and there to show where you stand. But you never know, they may ask, because entirely it's their prerogative. So SDG India Index is something which shows India has done wonderful and this is what they had talked about. You have read this report, I'm sure, here and there, current affairs and all, when it came. But the economic survey has taken this as a benchmark, this as a tool to tell the world with this program, with this document, that India is doing good in terms of SDG. We are improving in terms of SDG. And if you see that out of 13 goals, how we are. So overall, if you see, the report card is good. This is what, there's nothing much to say about this SDG India Index, but this clearly indicates that India's report card is wonderful into this. So that's the first thing. Moving ahead, if you see that, if we talk about overall, so SDG India, we have done wonderful. Front runners have increased. Kerala is at the top, Bihar is at the bottom. Even in UTs, Chandigarh has done wonderful. Overall, the report card is good from 60 to 66. We are not that good in goal 8, and the reason is very obvious because of the COVID and all. But overall situation is good, particularly objective 6, that is safe drinking water and sanitation, objective 7, that is renewable energy and all. So that's how we got SDG India index. I am taking a leverage here, knowing this that many of you have already read in detail about it. So it is a report card produced by Niti Aayog to see where India ranks in SDG. Now, what has definitely been a very encouraging document is in terms of land forest. So where India stands in land forest, if you see our land forest has increased as per the report. If you see from the over the past decades, India's forest situation is improving. Global ranking in 2020, India is now in the 10th largest country. Please bring it to your notice. In fact, if you are showing the original document, there is a graphical representation from Brazil, which you call the world's oxygen chamber, to India. Now we are in the top 10. India is in top 10. Forest area, India's forest account for 2% of the world, and 24% is in respect to geographical area. This statistics I have already read, but then even 24% is in. So economic survey has highlighted all that. 24% is the forest cover in India of its total geographical area, and of the globe, if you see, its share is 2%. 2%, and we now in the top 10 by the 10th position. We had gain in forest. If you see, that's how, that's a good thing that we are covering. And when we say forest, as I've already told you, forest is that area, any area with at least minimum of 1 hectare land that is required, and the tree canopy concentration should be 10%. That's what is the definition of the forest. By that logic, two data you have to for sure remember. 24% is India's forest cover out of its geographical area, of her geographical area, and 2% is the world share. So if you see that it ranks 3rd globally in average annual net gain. Did you notice that? 3rd globally in the annual net gain. So India is growing at a faster rate in terms of forest cover. So that was the global position. If you see, forest cover comprises all land more than 1 hectare, as I told you. This is the definition I provided. Increase in forest cover has there. Now, look at the statistics quickly. Madhya Pradesh is with the highest forest cover. Generally, people get confused here. Why not Arunachal Pradesh? Because of the geographical area wise, if you see, Madhya Pradesh is highest, followed by Arunachal, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Maharashtra. These are the top 5. Madhya Pradesh with the highest. However, if you see concentration wise, means out of the entire state geographical area, concentration wise, then we have Mizoram, Arunachal, Meghalaya, Manipur and Nagaland. Now these small statistics are important. And again, I believe any informed listener should not try to mug it up. Understand the logic. Madhya Pradesh is bigger in size, and they have a lot of forest cover. If you see the topography of Madhya Pradesh, that is the reason why Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh naturally ranks in the top position. That's the reason why they rank even in the tribal position. I understand the location. So Madhya Pradesh is with the maximum forest cover, followed by Arunachal Pradesh, and then Chhattisgarh, then Odisha and Maharashtra. In fact, not a surprise, almost similar behavior you'll see in the tribal population. Naturally, that's how you can, again, the data is what UPSC does not want from you for sure is that you're mugging up the data. They want to understand whether you're a logical fellow or not, whether you understand the connections or not. So Madhya Pradesh is with the largest, if you see, in terms of forest. But if you see the concentration wise, all the top five are in the northeast, very much understandable. Of their geographical area, Mizoram is the top, 85%, Arunachal Pradesh 79%, Meghalaya 76%, Manipur and Nagaland. Again, I don't think you have to mug up the data. Even if they are asking the data, you trust me, some way or the other hint will be given. But you should be aware of Manipur, Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, what is the location. So first is Mizoram, Arunachal, then we got Meghalaya, then we got Manipur, and then we got Nagaland. So be careful, Arunachal is not even at the top position in terms of concentration. So concentration wise, it's Mizoram, Arunachal, then Meghalaya, then Manipur, and those who are little aware of the otherwise topographical distribution This is where satellite images help us. So if you see the Mizoram, how dense Mizoram is, the entire Mizo, if you see that, that how that dense area is. So Mizoram, Arunachal, Meghalaya, Manipur and Nagaland, that is in terms of concentration with respect to, WRT is with respect to geographical area, and overall Madhya Pradesh, Arunachal, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Maharashtra. This data you have to remember. So this is how we got, so now you know the definition of the forest, you know what is the distribution of the forest. Moving ahead, plastic waste management. If you see, as I told you in terms of plastic waste management, what is single use, for your special focus I had highlighted here, this is the definition, because once you are talking about single use plastic, what it means, the definition is low utility and high littering potential. That is how United Nations Environment Programs define what is single use plastic. And then plastic waste management, as you know, a lot of things has been done. I told you already, India has taken the lead, and 2021 we got the rule amended, plastic waste management amendment rules. Look, now I'm going a little faster knowing this, that these are the matter of your routine current affairs. Economic survey has brought notice to it. So now that means they are very important from your examination point of view, and you should take a special note of them while writing your examination here and there. So when it comes to plastic waste management amendment rule, which has been little older and news now, plastic waste management, which is clearly indicating two things. First, we are trying to make sure that single use plastic which has low utility and high littering potential should be gradually phased out. Obviously, more than, I was reading one of the reports that says, not an economic survey, but somewhere else, it was highlighted that more than 7 crore people are dependent upon this plastic industry for their jobs. You cannot overnight close it. It has to be done in phase manner, and that is what they are trying to. So if you see that, from 50 micron to 75 micron from September 2021, this is where you have heard the news earlier. And now by December 31st, by the end of this year, it will be 120 micron. As I told you, that bigger the micron size is, easy will be degradability of the element. So that's how we are focusing it, and then any kind of packaging and all that is something which is controlled. That's how we got what is called plastic waste management amendment rule. But what is more important in this rule is that it also talks about that those who are producing it, it's their collective responsibility. This is not only in plastic use, plastic waste management, but even in e-waste management also, that the producers should try to make sure that they are using it to recycle. That's why, let's say, if someone is making plastic, they should try to make sure that it is coming back to them in terms of recycling, and that is what is called producers, import and brand owner responsibility, PIBO responsibility. That means those who are producing it or the brand concerned. So let's say you bought that milk packet. Now they will be responsible that this is recycled. So you will go, there will be time now that they may ask you that bring back that empty packets, we are purchasing it, in return we'll give you some money or maybe some discount. So this way they will make sure recyclability is faster, and guideline for that has been given. And now even states are working. Now every state has been directed to take an action, and penalties are as per Environment Protection Act 1986. So single use plastic, and this is something which was highlighted by Prime Minister of India to the world. That's why we are called, the Prime Minister of India was conferred with what is called champions of the earth, because this is it takes hundreds of the year for the degradability, definitely it's cheaper, no doubt, but look at the environmental costs. So isn't it against the sustainability? Might be cheaper today for us, but not for the upcoming generation, because for them it will have a lot of cost. That's how the definition of sustainability says plastic use. Single plastic use particularly should be stopped ASAP, and others should be phased out simultaneously. We should promote what is called jute bags, other kind of packaging, and so on and so forth. So this is what we are trying to, it's something which they had brought to our notice, that how India's commitment towards sustainable development is very much visible. So I think after given in the economic survey and prioritized by it, this makes a sense to be asked in your examination, because by the time you will be writing mains, that will be the limit of 31st December. So keeping this in mind, from mains point of view, this could be very, very significant. You should take a proper note of. That's why, as I've already told you, the document of the vision, we try to give a full length question on that, which you can write at home to see where you stand. So this is how we got when we talk about plastic waste management and all that kind of thing. Now, moving ahead, if you see that here, how the states are requested to make a special task force, national level task force is there, and then hazardous and other waste management rule has been amended. So we are also addressing single-use plastic as per the 4th United Nations Environment Assembly. As I told you, that this is where we brought this to the world's notice. So if you see, every state is now having special task force. They can inspect it, they can make sure that neither manufacturing nor use nor production, and if it is there, the penalties might be given as per Environment Protection Act. In fact, the hazardous and other waste management rule of 2016 has been amended accordingly. Special emphasis in terms of special economic zones and other kind of exports. So we are making sure that we are showing no to it, and this is where Prime Minister is talking about life for environment, that it should be part of our lifestyle also, that we should say no to it. Obviously, monitoring each and every individual is not possible if we all are monitoring ourselves. This is what he is trying to highlight at international forum. So jute bags are not that bad. In fact, every jute bag trial, if I could tell you, every jute bag is going to help that female in the rural area to get additional income for her family, and this is an evident truth. When the females get more income in the rural landscape, the overall society improves with the education and so on and so forth. So keeping this in mind, it's not that bad to develop that kind of behavior. This is what he's requesting to the entire community. Now, it's not just a matter of inspection and restrictions. It is something which is the matter of each of us. It concerns each of us. So that's how we got when we talk about single-use plastic. There is a focus on it. Then obviously, if you see, there is a focus on the groundwater, as we all are going through what is called unsustainable extraction of the groundwater. So the survey has highlighted that part also. If you see, the groundwater extraction has increased, and overexploitation is something which is very much concentrated in the northwest part and the southern India. Needless to say, it has its logical connection to the green revolution crops, and this is where we need to focus upon also. However, they had said that water extraction, in fact, there is a very good graph which I would like to talk about in terms of groundwater. If you see that when it comes to groundwater, the reservoirs, they had talked about that we have reservoirs, particularly if you see in the southern part, so what happens if you see the behavior of the reservoir, at certain times they are very much with the water, and then they get emptied or dried. That's why they had especially mentioned that we need to have proper strategy for what is called ensuring that reservoirs are having enough of water across the year. This is where again economic survey looked like giving an advice to the government that this is something which is overlooked, we need to focus upon. That for the reservoir, we need to have what kind of strategy could be there. Obviously, one of the ways is sensitizing people and water harvesting and these kind of approaches. So that you study in your irrigation facilities to what is called recyclability of the water. But reservoirs could be very useful, as we all know, and this trend can be little regulated. Obviously, you cannot completely undo it, knowing the natural factors, but to large extent it can be managed, as it has been the part of our society. If you see from ancient days that we used to maintain reservoir in different ways. So this is something where apparently economic survey is looking directly advising to the government that this is something where we need to focus more upon. Then if you see, this is what I wanted to talk about. This is one of the graph which I will say is in one way saying one more. Did you see this? this what is called green belt. If your extraction is less than 70, if your extraction is less than 70, then you call it safe. If extraction is less than 70, so if you see that stage of extraction is less than 70 is a safe, SOE in the range of 70 to 90 is semi-critical, if extraction is more than 90 to 100 critical, more than 100 over exploited, and if you see that saline. If it is less than 70, so this is the benchmark, this is the benchmark, it looks like that we have reduced our safe extraction. This clearly indicates what I started the conversation, that we are not using our water resources justifiably. Our water resources needs what is called special attention. Now here one thing I would like to tell you which will make my discussion even more useful to you. I hope you're knowing that we have what is called Jal Shakti Ministry now. Jal Shakti Ministry has brought all of them. Initially we had water resources, different ministry, safe drinking water different, and Namami Gange was different. Now we have merged all of them into one, and that's called Jal Shakti Ministry. Now Jal Shakti Ministry is continuously working upon it, that where we need to focus upon, because this is one of the data you should take up into your notice, that the safe extraction is up to 70%. Many of the time, if you have seen, we have gone below that, clearly indicating that we are extracting water more than which is in the safe trajectory. Clearly indicating that we need to relook into how to use what is called water in more effective way. However, here on the sidelines, though economic survey has not talked about it, but I would like to say one thing which clearly supports this document. It was said by Jal Shakti Mantralaya only, and Jal Shakti Mantralaya had said it very clearly, that it is not the water which is the problem, it is the water management which is the problem. So keeping this in mind clearly indicates that we need to focus upon the extraction part, where we are extracting more, what could be the way for recyclability of the water, and water wastage should be stopped. These kind of approaches are required. So groundwater scenario is something which is getting little into, it's looming a bit, I would like to say, it's looming a bit, and we need to focus upon it along with the water harvesting and other kind of facilities which we have. Needless to say, this extraction is primarily because of agriculture. That's the reason why micro irrigation is getting more focused. Not a surprise, this year's mains has asked for the years, be ready for it. Micro irrigation definitely can reduce this extraction. We have also look into, these days we are talking about what is called climate resilient agriculture. In that we are also looking into that how we can have what is called lesser water extraction. So that is where we need to focus upon, says in terms of water. If you see, a special emphasis has been given on the Namami Gange. You know, Namami Gange mission, one of the very important objectives and priority, and there are 4 subheads of it. That is what is called, we are talking about that how to make sure that Ganga is pure, how to make sure that its flow is better, how to make sure that people contact is better, and how to make sure people are aware of it. So Namami Gange mission, which is one of the very important objectives, because now you must be wondering why Ganga is so much prioritized. Is it something to do with the religion? No, the fact is here. I'm not saying it's not. Obviously maybe our ancestors had this wisdom, as the river was very important is the reason why it was given the ritualistic high position. Whatever, that could be a simple correlation, but if you see, why? Because if you see, the Ganga river itself is something which provides you can say livelihood to a large section of the Indian population. So the aim, to protect, conserve and regenerate the Ganga river. Clean Ganga Fund has been established. Now again, do not mug up this data, but you should be aware of that there is a Clean Ganga Fund established, and it is completely center sector scheme. That means central government will take care of it. And mission approved for a period of 5 years, then extension has been given. And under the Ministry of, under the Authority of Environment, if you say that National Mission for Clean Ganga has been notified, that is a part of Environment Protection Act. And then if you see that there are 4 components of it, what is called Nirmal Ganga, because if you see that how the Ganga is something which is ensuring Nirmal Ganga, when we say that we must make sure it is unpolluted, a lot of thing has been done into that. These are direct statistics that saying that how 160 sewerage projects has been sanctioned as of December 31st, 2021. And so sewerage projects has been stopped. Then treatment of what is called waste management is something which we are trying to work upon. Littering is something which we are trying to reduce to make Ganga unpolluted, and that's why we call it Nirmal Ganga. Then we are having what is called continuous monitoring of those areas which are grossly polluting industries across the river side, to make sure that they are showing proper compliance, and that has been increased. Now the compliance, if you see, is increasing continuously in that area. Again, I think it will be unfair to say that you should mug up the data, but you should be having at least this thing that in Nirmal Ganga we are trying to reduce the littering in the river, and we are also showing regular monitoring to make sure that which are grossly polluting industries are showing compliance in terms of waste management, and they are not just littering or throwing it in the river, to make the river unpolluted. That is what is called Nirmal Ganga. A Viral Ganga is to make continuous flow. For that we are going for forest intensification and biodiversity assessment. We are going for wetland conservation, so that we can make sure that the flow of the river is better. That's why for your attention I have highlighted it: Nirmal Ganga, Viral Ganga, Jan Ganga, Gyan Ganga. So Nirmal Ganga, two things. We are having what is called continuous focus on sewage management, and second is what we are focusing upon, that those areas where we have grossly polluting industries on the river basin should be showing compliance, that they are not wasting and the management of the waste is proper. In the Viral Ganga we are having biodiversity assessment, we are promoting what is called forest cover and all those ecosystem which is required for better and continuous flow of the river. In terms of Jan Ganga, we are trying to make sure that people are aware of it by offering what is called Ganga Utsav, River City Alliance, and then Gyan Ganga we are focusing upon the research. Please be careful, Namami Gange is still one of the important topics in examination, despite the fact it has been asked. So these are four of the elements which has been highlighted. And Center for Ganga Management and Study set up at IIT Kanpur. This is something which you should be aware of, might be asked. It has been highlighted in the survey that we have a Center for Ganga Management and Study now, where it is IIT Kanpur. So they will be looking into that, what is the long-term basin studies, what could be done for technology development. Maybe they will be looking into tensiliometer of that area, and there are several scope, no doubt about it. This river is something, as I just told you, caters the agriculture requirement of a larger section. Maximum population is concentrated on the banks of this river, and above all, if you see, this is something very important for the entire topographical structure of the country. Keeping this in mind, having a Center for Ganga Management and Study at IIT Kanpur definitely is a very welcoming move, which will look into the scientific factors of the waste management, how that can be done, what needs to be done in terms of what is called better water treatments, because obviously you can't stop the flow, but water treatment is where the solution is. So definitely we are working into it. So this is how we got what is called Namami Gange. Almost more than, I should say, half a page or maybe 1 page coverage has been given in the survey that shows how they had prioritized it, showcased it to the global scenario, that Namami Gange is our commitment towards sustainable development. So did you notice I connected with the sustainable development? If something of that nature is asked, you can use this, that how sustainable development and Namami Gange mission goes hand in hand. Moving ahead, when it comes to air quality, look, here we had given you a quick reference that source-wise initiatives, what has been done. If you see vehicular emission, that is something where we have shifted from BS4 to BS6, metro rail network for public transport, alternative fuel, CNG, ethanol blending, and famous scheme has been introduced. For industrial emission, we are having stringent norms now. Ban on use of imported pet coke. Now we are not allowing, we have completely banned import of the pet coke. Online continuous emission monitoring has been, we have now devices in those areas where the chances of air pollution are more. Then we got what is called 6 waste management rule related to dust and burning, e-waste management, biomedical waste management, extended producer responsibility, I have just told you, ban on burning on biomass. For monitoring of ambient air quality, we have expansion of air quality monitor network under the scheme like National Air Monitoring Program, air quality earth warning system in Delhi, Kanpur and Lucknow. So this is how we are having what is called better monitoring. So this is source wise. Already a question has been asked in the mains on air quality. You should be a little aware of that, how the source wise. So there are 4 sources we are emphasizing here. Vehicular emission, as you know, we had moved from BS4 to 6. We are promoting what is called electric vehicle and other alternative sources. We are ensuring that we, in terms of industry, what is needed to be done with a stringent monitoring to stringent norms. For air pollution, what we are ensuring that burning etc. should be reduced, and we are having better monitoring. So this is what they had provided in paragraphs in source wise initiative. I hope this diagram will had brought the things at one place. So this is how we got when it comes to air quality improvement. There is a special emphasis given that what has been done for this air quality improvement, as you say that we have National Clean Air Program to achieve 20-30% reduction in particle matter concentrate by 2024 across the country, keeping 2017 as the base year. Please be careful, though the question has been asked in mains already on this, but still, to National Clean Air Program, what it focuses upon, 20-30% reduction in the particle matter concentration by 2024, considering 2017 as the benchmark. So from the 2017 it should be reducing. However, it covers 132 cities, include 34 million plus cities, 15th Finance Commission and 8 other million plus cities which fall under what is called X5 grant. This is the new definition which we got in terms of categorization of the city now. For receiving performance based grant for air quality improvement. However, the news is not that encouraging. There are certain states or certain cities where we are doing wonderful, but then there are certain cities where we are not doing so wonderful. That is something, that means their particle pollution has increased. We need to be more focused upon them so that they are not only showing the correction but coming on the right trajectory. Moving ahead, if you see that air pollution control in Delhi NCR, this time the economic survey has given a separate emphasis on this part, that what has been done in Delhi NCR, as you know, that we are talking about. This is, I'm sure you have heard of it, especially those who are a student might have felt, I'm sure they might be angry on this also. We got what is called Air Quality Management Commission. In fact, that was the commission which has ordered that the classes should be closed, and then the government went to the commission that please now open it. So that kind of thing. I think they are now Commission of Air Quality Management in NCR, and adjoining area has been made. Central government scheme on promotion of agriculture mechanization for in situ management, particularly for the crop burning, kharif crop burning. The residues of the kharif crop, if you see that they are being burned, so that is something which we need to have what is called technological intervention for it. Many of the states in neighboring states has given promotion on it. Then diesel vehicle more than 10 years not allowed, petrol vehicle more than 15 years not allowed. Operationalizing of expressway and highway so that the traffic is not concentrating in the city. So these are something, and then installation of online monitoring of industrial emission. So this is how a special focus has been given, air pollution control in Delhi NCR. It is something which you are aware of, that there is a commission, there is what is called promotion of agriculture mechanization for in situ management of crop residues, and then ban on diesel vehicle after 10 years and operation of the highways and express, and then what is called installation of online monitoring. These are some of the initiatives taken. I think Delhi NCR is going to be the case study which other states can replicate beforehand to reduce the air pollution. Moving ahead, if you see that achievement in reduction of air pollution, 96 cities have shown good result. Increase in number of cities, if you see that how it is there. However, I told you that some of them are still showing that there is a higher trajectory. So, however, 36 cities showing an increasing trend in PM10 concentration. That is something which is a matter of concern. They need special attention, and improvement is by and large there in terms of air quality. For Delhi, if you see the improvement is there, where there is an increase in, at least they have seen across the 365 days where the quality was, and that shows some improvement. So you can say that we are going on the track in terms of air pollution, but again it is something which is going to be a joint responsibility with everyone, and we must make sure, we should learn lessons from Delhi NCR and must make sure that we are fixing the problem before it get that bigger. So that is how we got special emphasis in the survey about air pollution. Moving ahead, National Action Plan for Climate Change is something which is very good ready reckoner they had provided. I'll go quick on it because Economic Survey has given the list which you have read here and there in terms of climate change at one place. That we have National Solar Mission, which is going to talk about 100 gigawatt of solar power. We have National Mission for Green India, where we are trying to improve the ecosystem by increasing forest area. A National Mission on Sustainable Habitat, as you know, it talks about development of sustainable habitat standards, energy efficiency, and then alternative fuel economy standards and purchase of efficient vehicles. So you have heard of these. So they had provided it one in name of National Action Plan on Climate Change. As you know, it is working since 2008. So whatever is there, so first scheme of Solar Mission, then National Mission for Green India, National Mission on Sustainable Habitat, then extension of climate change action program, then National Hydrogen Mission, net zero carbon emission, and then if you see that use of renewable energy sources. So if you see, this is how whatever is there, all that has been brought at one place. Similarly, if you say Pradhan Mantri Kusum, as you call it, PM Kusum, then other solar power initiatives like roofs, top solar program. So what they have done, which you read here and there, sorry for slip of the tongue, so which you read here and there, that is brought together. We had provided a ready reckoner. Obviously, you should be at least aware of these mega schemes which are there, primarily for sake of solar development. Then we have what is called COP26, as you know, that at Glasgow, when India took the lead in terms of one sun, one world, one grid, and they had talked about that how we got a standing committee of it. Paris rule book is something which we are going to, so the Paris rule book is something which we are going to refer to. Glasgow Climate Pact has been signed as adaptation, mitigation, finance, technology, transfer, capacity building, and 2-year Glasgow Sharm el-Sheikh work program on the global goal of adaptation. Glasgow dialogues between parties, relevant organizations and stakeholders on loss and damages has been established. Annual high-level ministerial roundtable on pre-2030 ambition conveyed. So this way, if you see, the entire briefing of the Glasgow has been given. As I hope you're knowing that how in the Glasgow we had been one of the very important comrade of what is called reducing the emission, carbon emission, and going for renewable energy. So this is where they had provided the COP26 highlight, so that how India is working upon it, and many countries are joining in to make sure that we are going with Paris rule book. We are ensuring that carbon emissions and net zero is on the track. Then if you see that this is something which I would like to talk about, but before that if you see that how we are financing it sustainable development, this is something which I would like to bring your special notice upon. This is a new thing which they have highlighted in this way in Economic Survey to this magnitude. So I believe from mains examination point of view, this could be very important. Glasgow, you have read it, so there was no point of repeating it unnecessarily, but this is something which you should be very much focused upon. For financial risk mitigation of the climate change, from where the money will come, RBI has made a sustainable finance group. Be careful. We got first, RBI has made a sustainable finance group to make sure that the money is there for climate change programs. RBI is preparing a consultative discussion paper in this regard. Augmenting finance for sustainable development. Task force on sustainable finance is under what is called Ministry of Finance. So we are having a task force also under the Ministry of, so RBI is having now a sustainable finance group where various people will be part of it. Ministry of Finance is having a task force for making finance availability for sake of it. RBI has joined the central banks and supervisory network for greening the financial system. Please be careful. Greening the financial system is about sustainable development and climate change. Don't think it's about provisioning norms or correcting the NPA. So greening the financial system is there now, and liberalizing external commercial borrowing norms of RBI to make sure that we are having renewable energy. I'm sure you are aware of it, that even in priority sector lending, renewable energy quota has been increased as per the recommendation of Sinha committee. So RBI is doing a lot of things to make sure. That's why I brought it at one place. So 3-4 things. A, that we have what is called sustainable finance group. I especially believe this has higher potential in your examination point of view. From the disaster management point of view, if you see that how RBI is having a sustainable finance group, then a consultative discussion paper has been made, augmenting finance, task forces with the Ministry of Finance, and then how it internationally greening the finance. RBI is a member of it. Liberalizing external commercial borrowing, that means companies can take loan from the outside if they are for renewable energy. And bilateral and global sustainable finance initiatives. RBI is a member of a task force on climate related finance risk, which is set by the Fiscal committee. So RBI is member of climate related financial risk committee, which definitely is a very welcoming move again. So that's how we got RBI's initiative in terms of financing sustainable development along with the Ministry of Finance. Take a proper note of it. It might be useful in your mains also. Because this is something which I loved personally also, that okay fine, they had made a roadmap also that how India is working in terms of financing climate change, not just talking. SEBI has introduced, as you know, there is one thing called, I had given you already, environment, social and governance disclosure. That's called ESG, that all companies which are listed with the SEBI, now the 1,000 companies, if you see, they have to make sure that by 2022-23 they are showing their ESG disclosure. That means SEBI is now also making sure that we are, so these companies, the big companies, the top 1,000 listed companies will tell that how they are showing their commitment in terms of climate change and sustainable development. That is called business responsibility and sustainability report. So earlier it was called business responsibility report in terms of CSR, etc. Now we got it called business responsibility and sustainability report. So if a question is asked, what has been done for financing on the climate change, first talk about how we are going for direct financing with the help of RBI, Ministry of Finance Task Force, and me being member of the Basel, and also say that how top 1,000 listed companies are promoted under the ESG norms by the SEBI. So SEBI has made it mandatory by next year, that means the going financial year. However, they can voluntarily also participate, but now it will be mandatory that they are giving their ESG disclosure. That is how much they are showing commitment towards sustainable development. So this is how we got how we are going to finance it. Then the next slide, we are trying to understand which is again very good thing. They had said that what is India's initiative at the international stage. If you see lifestyle for environment, I have already told you this is called LIFE, where we are working on these things. Then we have International Solar Alliance, then we have launch of green grid initiatives, as I told you, attaining a permanent observer status. We have now that what is called one sun, one world, one grid. Then we have what is called already member of COP26. Then if you see that another very important thing is coalition for disaster resilient infrastructure. This is another initiative introduced by India in 2019. Now in 2019 when India introduced all that, look, it has been often said, if you spend 1 rupee in disaster resilient infrastructure, you will save 4 rupees in terms of disaster. India is a leader into that. We are working on it, and that's why we are, look, it is mentioned, infrastructure for resilient island states, IRIS is there now, led, where we have India, UK, Australia, Fiji, Jamaica, Mauritius. So Jamaica, Mauritius, Fiji, Australia, UK, India, they are coming together for IRIS. Then we have what is called Third International Conference on Disaster Resilient Infrastructure has been launched by India. Along with UK, Italy and Fiji. So we have what is called CDRI, which is a very important development. It has been launched in 2019. Now its members are more than 28. I think this is something, again, already something of that nature has been asked in this year's mains. Not directly, but indirectly, but still it has a potential. It has a potential to be asked that we have CDRI, which is Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. India has started this idea in 2019, 28 countries are there. Within that we got IRIS now. IRIS stands for Infrastructure for Resilient Islands States. So we are working on that. Even we have what is called a lot of initiatives, in networks of network is there, where we are ensuring that peoples are coming together, and 28 countries had come together. We are looking forward for it. India has been taken a lead, and it looks that it is going to help not only in the image building, helping the entire world in terms of disaster resilience, but back home also will create export opportunities for us. So this is how CDRI, in that we got IRIS, which is there, and small island development states are also coming there. It's a global flagship program on disaster and climate resilience infrastructure to engage and focus global attention on the critical and multifaceted challenge posed to disaster and climate resilient infrastructure. So where the focus is how we can make that infrastructure which is otherwise disaster resilient. India is the leader, 28 countries has joined, and within that we got now IRIS also for island states, where again we have India, UK, Australia, Fiji, Jamaica and Mauritius. I don't know whether should I call it or not, but IRIS looked like me that it's not only an opportunity for resilient infrastructure debate from India, it also provides our strong positioning in the ocean. In the ocean, India can, it's a very diplomatic win also for India to take the lead of IRIS, having the partners like Australia and UK. And so this is how we got very significant development. And then we have what is called leadership group for industry transition. This is India and Sweden. This might be significant from Prelims point of view. So for industrial transition, how to make it as per the climate change, India and Sweden has joined the pact. And then they had given some recommendation in the last that going forward there is need to further improve forest and tree cover, state UTs need to improve management of its groundwater resources, and there's a greater thrust on climate action and for the net zero, and climate financing remains a critical challenge. So that's how, if you see in this chapter, what the focus was. The focus was again to, as I said in the beginning, they provided the data, where we are in the Glasgow, where we are in terms of forest, where we are in terms of water, where we are in terms of Namami Gange, where we are in terms of what is called air pollution. But the more focus was in terms of analysis, how the process reforms in funding the climate change, how there is reform going on in terms of what is called India's taking lead positions in CDRIs and international solar alliances, that kind of thing. A very good ready reckoner has been provided for all the initiatives which you have taken for National Plan for Climate Action, or you can say climate change, since 2008. So that chapter is something which I personally loved. If you ask me one of the best chapters, I'll say this one, because it provides a one-stop solution for the students. If I could see from the UPSC point of view, to students it provide all the information at one place, which by and large with some basic understanding will fulfill your requirement from environment point of view in your prelims and mains, and definitely will come up with a lot of value addition. If you're talking about climate action, wonder when everyone is writing stories about the basic things, if someone has added the hint of climate financing, definitely the quality of the answer improves. So this is how you can use this information. So this is about sustainable development and climate change. So this was about these two chapters, which are very, very important from examination point of view. And I'm really delighted that, okay, fine, I had a lot of things to share with you. Now, before I hang up my boot for today, I would like to say two things. These PPTs, as I just told you, are nothing but directly from that vision material. So that material will suffice you. And I strongly recommend that if you could not read the original document, no problem, but do read this. Try to do it ASAP as the classes are coming to an end now, so that whether you can get it accordingly, you can get your marks, and on that, be digital or physical, whatever copy you prefer. We had given some questions in the last also. Try to give it a try. If you are answering those questions, I have shown you already in one of the chapters, that is external sector, that how we have done what is called previous question. We had kept the information to bare minimum, and whenever the chart has been given, it does not mean you have to mug up the data. It is more for trend analysis, whether you can see the trend or not. So this was about today's discussion. I hope it was fruitful for you, and I'm really thankful for listening me for this long time. Tomorrow we'll continue for another important chapter, which is we all are knowing is the priority of the government of India. It looks like the heralding chapter for the entire year for the government of India, and that is industry and infrastructure. So with this, I'll wind up for today. Thank you, and all the very best.